waterboarding.
They're talking about wakeboarding. The thing about wakeboarding, every trick is an invert.
Backside.
Air railies.
A new dimension.
Everybody is going huge.
What do you think about waterboarding? I said, I like it a lot, but I don't think it's tough enough.
Welcome to another episode of the Grab Matters podcast. We got Johnny D on, professional wakeboarder, plastic rail salesman, and all-around super smart Instagram extraordinaire. How you doing, Johnny?
Doing good.
Glad to hear it, buddy. Start off with a few quick questions. What did you score on the ACT or SAT? Which one did you take?
I took both. I remember sections of them. For the ACT, I definitely got a 36 in math.
Okay.
And a 36 in science.
That's the highest score you can get. People don't know.
Yeah, I don't really remember my English score, but I took like SAT subject test. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's mostly for like Ivy League stuff. They have like math at the SAT, then they have like math 1 and math 2 for after, and like a science one and all that, and I got like 800 on all of those. So.
And 800 is a perfect score.
Yeah.
So the overall score, did you get 36 on the ACT then?
No, because like it might have been writing because they have 4 on the ACT. One of them was low, so I got 34, I think.
And why did you take that? You took the SAT too, as well?
I just took them both at the same time. But
just for fun,
honestly,
good time.
I didn't really take the SAT. I took the SAT when I was younger, like when I was like in 7th grade or something. And I got like a 7 something on the math one, and I got like this whole award thing or whatever. But then I took the ACT because I was like, I kind of took the SAT, like let me try the ACT and see how I like it. And the score was good, you know. And then the SAT is the only one that offers those extra subject tests. So I took the ACT normal and the SAT like harder or like subject style, like a more advanced math and science and stuff because they don't do normal science on the SAT. So I took the SAT like subject ones for different schools.
So basically, that was a long way of asking: are you the smartest person in the water sports industry?
No.
Who's smarter than you?
Well, if you mean book smart, maybe with the books I am, but like I'm good at taking tests. I might be the best test taker in the industry.
And you got into MIT.
Yeah, I just decided that
wasn't good enough for you.
No, well, we're jumping so hard. The goal was to go there, and
I don't actually want to dive into that yet.
Okay,
you know that decision and stuff. I was just fucking around, but
yeah. Well, I think I'm good at books, but I lack in other areas.
Okay. Maybe we'll dive into those other areas here in a little bit. But let's get started with you discovering wakeboarding because it was pretty late in like your teenage years, right? Like 17, 18 when you first got into it or no?
That would be cable parks, I would say. When I first got into it, I was 16 actually. But I knew about wakeboarding when I was a kid because I just lived in Orlando and we had events and stuff. But I wasn't like doing wakeboarding, you know. I just knew about it. I'd been to actually contests and stuff. My dad skied. So, like he brought home a wakeboard for him to try and different stuff when I was young and I would ski. My dad didn't compete or anything. It was just like a recreational thing.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Milwaukee's best really putting in some work there.
So we brought home a wakeboard and we all kind of learned, and I tried it once and it was like a way too big board for me and different stuff. And then there was a period where I got smoked and was like, I wasn't like super scared, but it was just like, clearly we had no idea what we were doing.
This is behind the boat and you guys are living on a lake, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I guess I jumped a little, but.
Well, no, I was just curious. So
my dad like got a ski boat and shared it with 3 friends because we didn't have like a ton of money or anything. So he like got it with 2 other friends and would just ski in the mornings before work and they'd pull each other. And I learned how to ski, but it was just never something I was like super hooked on.
Yeah.
I did enjoy like trying to learn the course slalom skiing for a little bit, like a few months, and then I was kind of bored of just the repetition. So we also ended up somehow bringing a wake skate, or a friend brought a wake skate. So when I was a kid, I would like wake skate a little bit because it was like fit me and the falls didn't hurt and everything.
Yeah.
So I like learned how to edge and stuff, but this was like the thing like for most kids where you go to like a summer vacation house and you ski a few times a year.
Yeah.
It was like that, you know. Even though we lived on a lake, it's not like I went out skiing with my dad often, you know.
Yeah. What lake was that?
It's a small lake called Lake George, and it's pretty much across the street from Lake Conway.
Okay.
And it's just super tiny. There's like 13 houses on the lake. It does not really work for wakeboarding on like big wakeboard boats, but for skiing it's fine. It had a course actually on the lake, like built in from skiers. So
That's sick. So your dad was like kind of into water skiing, but not like super crazy hard about it. He was just like kind of a recreation with his buddies. They all had a boat.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, he loved surfing when he was younger. He's from like South Florida and like always wanted to ski, I guess, but also didn't grow up skiing himself.
Okay.
So just kind of got into it in his older age.
So you said you were familiar with wakeboarding, like growing up in Florida, obviously. You see it. When was your first experience with maybe not going to a cable park, but like discovering, okay, this is what a cable park is?
Yeah. So I actually leave this part out of most stories because it's like kind of, it just adds length, but
We got plenty of time, so dive in.
Yeah, I figured. I actually went to summer camp at OWC when I was like 9. And after I had learned how to wakeboard like once, I went to summer camp and I loved the cable. My dad worked on the same street as OWC actually, in the trucking industry, if you've been to OWC, because there's like nothing else on that street.
a train that blocks you from getting in.
But yeah, like on Land Street where OWC is, he had an office there. So he was like, yo, you should do this for summer camp. And it was like a daycare type thing for him. Like, you know, it's not something that I had expressed wanting, but I was like, yeah, that sounds sick. Like, let's do it. And it was awesome. It was a really sick time. And it was just like super good friends. And my cousin did it with me. And after that, that's when I kind of started wake skating more and got the wake skate because I wake skated there. And I was like, oh, this is dope. Like, I like this. I was into skating and stuff. So I just did that and never went back to the cable park, though, because of just
After that summer camp.
Yeah, after the summer camp. Because, like, we had the boat and then the time to drive there and all of that was much harder logistically than just going in the backyard. Yeah. So I just started wake skating every once in a while, like on the boat, a random summer weekend.
But this was just like a hobby at this point, just kind of having fun.
I mean, yeah, like twice
around.
a year, like not a lot.
Were you doing any other sports at that time?
Yeah, I played basketball and football most of my life, like till I was 15. And I have done like, I kind of tried every sport. Like I was just into just doing different things and like, yeah, just trying it all.
American football?
Yeah.
What position did you play?
Mostly I played freshman year of high school and I played free safety. I don't know. I was like good at reading things, I guess, like figuring out what's going on. But I wasn't super big or anything, but it kind of didn't matter that much because it was, wasn't up on the line or anything.
Okay, so got to mess around with different sports, but when was that first time that you started to like get into cable after that summer camp? So like you took a long hiatus from like any experience with it. When was that next time you went and started kind of?
When I was 15, my friend brought me for Monday. It was half price if you're 16 and under, and his parents would drive him and like their family rode. And my friend in high school that I played football with actually was like brought me out, and they drove me and stuff because my dad worked a ton. And yeah, that's pretty much how I did it, like 2 or 3 times that year when I was 15, and I thought it was sick. And I like learned how to hit like a little kicker or a box or something, and I was like, I want to do this. That was when it clicked with me. I was like, I want to do this. This is sick. Like, I think in the summer camp, I didn't even hit a feature, you know? It was just screwing around.
Yeah, just getting up and riding around in a circle.
But it was sick. Like, I loved it then as well. But when I hit the feature, you know, that was when it clicked with me. I was like, I want to do this. Yeah, but, like, I just still logistically couldn't really.
How far were you? Or I guess, I don't know if Florida is like
10 minutes
geography.
from the cable.
So you live super close to it still at that time?
Oh, yeah. My dad, like, actually, like, he worked right there, and he was, like, 10 or 15 minutes. So it was not hard for me to, like. The hard part was, like, he couldn't drop me off before work because it was so early before the cable opened. But it wasn't hard to get there necessarily. But then you had to buy a day pass, and I didn't have gear. Like, there was a lot of barriers to entry. Yeah. And we had the boat. Like, it kind of prevented us from trying more to get there.
Yeah.
And then when I was 15, like, I started going a few times that year because my friend went, and I would just go anytime he went. I was more into it than him for sure. But then I started wakeboarding on the boat a little bit that year. Like, I was
after
like,
the cable.
I was like, I'm hooked on the cable. Like, I can't go to the cable. So, like, I'll try to wakeboard on the boat. Because, again, was exclusively wake skating pretty much until I was 15 on the boat. And that's when I started learning how to jump the wake. And I think I could, like, learn how to jump the wake that summer. Okay. And that was, like, the extent of it until after I was 15.
Sick. Okay, so you still only go 3 times in that, 15, 16-year-old span. When does the transition of like going every day, getting a season pass, getting your own setup, like how does that start?
Well, I think I'm going to add in a piece.
Yeah. If there's anything you need to add.
Like just my personal life, because I feel like you won't know it anyways to bring it up. But pretty much when I was like 12, I started getting really depressed as a kid. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, I went to therapy and everything for years, and I was put on antidepressants, and there was like nothing that caused it, but I was just like diagnosed as like clinically depressed and just like some chemical imbalance type thing. And it was something I was like always battling for years and different stuff. So it got kind of progressively worse as I got older. And when I was 15 and started high school, I still played sports. And then after like that first season of sports, of football and basketball, I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore and all that. And then that was the summer going to wakeboard and trying wakeboarding and really loving that. But like still that next year, my sophomore year, I didn't really do anything sport related. And I guess that was like a pretty good outlet for me. And I did other extracurricular activities and stuff, and I played music my whole life, and I got really into music at that point. And that was like a big coping thing for me. But throughout the year when I was 15, my sophomore year, like not doing sports and different stuff was like hard. And then it was just a hard year, and like everything was just tough, I guess, at that age. So I actually, in like February, I had plans to commit suicide. And so like, I mean, fully like was going to do it on
Like more than a thought.
Like it was happening, you know, like, and it was actually, ironically, it was Valentine's Day. I didn't really realize, but my friend had gone through a lot of similar stuff when we were younger, and I was dealing with depression, but, and we kind of got disconnected in high school, but we had like first period together that day, and something made them like write me a note that basically was like, just because it was Valentine's Day, I guess, like letting me know how much I mean to them, like not a romantic note, but just kind of like, hey, I feel like I've never got to tell you this, but like they told me that I saved their life just being there for them at the time. And that was the day I was like planning to kind of go through with it. And so I felt like, how could I do that without telling this person, you know, what the situation I was in. So basically at like lunch or something, I pulled them aside and was like, hey, like, well, first of all, I had no idea that that happened. And I had no idea they even went through that either themselves. They kept it very quiet, I guess. And so I was like, this is where I'm at. And like, I just feel like I have to tell you. And then we made like an agreement where they were going to just take me to the hospital after school, because I didn't know how my family would handle it and all of that. So we borrowed a car from a friend, or we found a friend to drive us who was like 16, I guess, because we were 15, and went to the hospital. And basically, I kind of made a deal with them that like, I guess I was familiar with the situation that like I'd get stuck in the hospital for a couple of days and all that stuff. So kind of made a deal like at the end of that, I would give that as like one last chance, you know, and then just kind of fake it or whatever to get out of it and kind of just go through with what I was already planning. And that was a pretty crazy experience for me. And I got put on tons of medication, like heavy antidepressants and everything. Basically, for the people who don't know, in Florida, there's something called being Baker acted. And when you go to the hospital, I think a lot of states have it, but this is what we call it. Or any time someone senses, especially when you're under 18, that you're going to harm yourself or harm someone else, then they without parent consent, they can like hold you in like a rehab type thing for 3 days, 72 hours. And you're not allowed to opt out, and your parents are not allowed to opt out for you. So in a way I was like, I will try this like 72-hour thing, you know? And in there, they actually have the right to like, I think anything as far as medicine goes. Yeah. I believe, I don't actually know about this, but maybe my parents signed off. I'm not sure. I was put on a ton of medicine, which I had already been on medicine, but like so much that like I didn't feel anything. They basically just like numb all your feelings. And then like monitored on that, and then slowly like taken off of that. And so essentially like, I mean, I guess the way I always explain it to people is not that like anything happened at that moment that made it way worse, but I feel like the time when you go from being just depressed to, I guess, suicidal, when it kind of flips the coin, I guess, is when I feel like you lose hope. You know, when you're depressed, you usually are like, well, if I get through high school, this will be better. If I get through whatever, that'll be better.
So those looks of positivity down the road or whatever.
Yeah, and just like, you know, you're like, this sucks now, but it'll get better. But when you get to that point where you're like, okay, it's not going to get better, then you start looking for a solution of something, you know? And that was kind of what happened to me. You know, I actually had like one of the best weeks of my life, and that was, and all the things I thought were causing it, like tons of homework, you know. Actually, my parents bought me a car that week, and I got like my own car, and I was like, this should make me feel better. Like I have the freedom, I have all this stuff. And I had a girlfriend and everything, like on Valentine's Day. I wasn't lonely, you know, and then that was when I kind of felt like there's no reason why I'm feeling this way, and there's no
like all the boxes are checked. Why is this happening?
Yeah,
or
so
like,
that's kind of like the point when it tips for me, you know. And so when you go to for my situation when I went here, they put me on a ton of medicine, and like you don't feel anything anymore, so you don't really feel depressed. You honestly literally feel like a robot where you're just kind of going through these motions, but you have no motivation to do anything, you know, including like there's no reason to deal with anything or like go through like commit suicide or anything like this, because it's like you're not down, you're just kind of empty. I don't know how to explain it.
Existing.
Yeah, you're just existing.
Yeah.
Like it's not even an empty feeling because you don't even feel like. So anyways, that happened. I got put on all this medicine. I left the rehab facility and everything. I went back home. My parents obviously knew I was dealing with depression, but not to the suicidal point. And that was all like kind of hectic for a few months. But I slowly had to get off the medicine to this degree and like get less medicated, you know, so I could function. And pretty much that was like February. Finished out the school year and everything was fine and all that. But like for me, it was always trying to kind of like figure out that coping thing. And I think my family, like at this point, we were more open, and it was like, you know, I felt like something, you know, had to.
It got really serious, and your parents
serious.
didn't understand how serious it was, and you're like, okay, this is.
Yeah, but then it was like everyone knew how serious it was.
Yeah,
and it was like, okay, we need to figure out something that works, right? Like I didn't want to like be miserable or like end my life necessarily. That just felt like the only choice at the time.
Yeah.
So it was like, even though I'm not feeling a lot, it's like we need to figure this out and stuff. And so I think at that point, there was like trying different things. We were going off medicine and a bunch of things I don't even remember, you know, trying hobbies, things like that. And wakeboarding ended up like when I don't remember why, but we basically went to the cable. Like, I started riding boat for like a month and learning how to jump the wake and do a 180. And my friend came over and he was like, yo, you're progressing a lot, whatever, but you should really try the cable. Like if you want to learn tricks like a 360, which I was like trying, but not close at all, you know? He's like, you should go to the cable and learn it there on the kickers. And so I went to the cable, and it was like May 14th actually. And the day I went, we bought a day pass, and before leaving, we bought a 6-month pass, and then bought a board and everything like that day. And I was like, instantly I knew like this was the thing. Like I was already kind of hooked before on wakeboarding, but like then I was like, yeah, I'm hooked. Like let's do this and stuff. And I went every day for like 3 months straight. Like did not ride boat again. Every single day I went to the cable. Pretty much my parents started getting concerned because they're like, you're not seeing any of your friends. Like, what's going on? This is so unhealthy, this obsession.
Yeah.
But I was making so many friends at the cable and like started points chase there and like beginner at the time. And you could do 360s. And like the first week I got last. And I was like, I need to learn a 3. And I was like open to close doing 360s, learned a 360, got super hooked, made so many friends from points chase. And then, yeah, like literally I think I was at the cable open to close the entire summer and just progressed a ton and was like hooked and kept going, never rode boat. End of 6 months, got a year pass, just kept going. And eventually I did a year later go back and ride boat. And I was like, I'll try boat for like 6 months. And I could already do like a bunch of front fives and like roller reverts and stuff. And I rode boat for like a few months and then got smoked a ton. Mostly because I was super confident, like, I'll just do a roller revert. I do it on the kicker or whatever. And I just like under flip, catch a front edge, get knocked out. Like I definitely got knocked out a couple times. And also it was so hard logistically to ride boat, like to get friends to come over to pull you, to go to their house.
Showing up and riding, there's a whole lot more.
Yeah. So essentially what changed for me was I had got my license, right? So like also I could drive to the cable.
Yeah.
That was like the big switch for me, as well as this timing. But I probably would have been hooked already a year before if I had my license, you know. So when I was 16, it just was nonstop pretty much, and then slowly I came off the medicine, and like wakeboarding kind of became that thing of coping, as well as like tons of things changed in my life for sure. Like but wakeboarding was a huge change.
Yeah. So first of all, I had no idea. So I'm glad you did bring that up, because I would never have known to, ask that. And thanks for sharing that. It's, some very personal information, but I think it's obviously helpful for a lot of people to hear out there. But you explained it as like a coin flip when it turned bad. Was there ever that coin flip when it, you were kind of coming out of it and it was like, okay, now things are really good? Was there ever a moment like that?
Probably not. No. I mean,
it was just slow progression.
Yeah, and it wasn't good for a long time. Like it didn't just get good after that, like because I was on medicine. Like even when I came off the medicine, it basically like was like coming off a lot of from no feeling to like just feeling crappy, but not really crappy, just a little crappy. Like I was like bringing back the crappiness feeling, but slowly, and then learning how to deal with that, but learning how to do different activities and like learning how to lean into different friendships and like make better friends and like, just find things that really, fit all of that, so, and then I was still like on antidepressants for years after that, and it definitely was not a slow fix. I would say there was probably a point when I realized like, oh, like this is, I feel like I'm good now.
Like a moment that you can look back at is kind of what I'm getting at is like, obviously I was there. I'm here now looking back at like kind of like a wow moment of like, wow, I've come pretty far.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know that moment happened.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it has to be a specific moment, but I was just kind of wondering where at in your life that happened afterwards.
No, for sure. But I think it's like I got really wrapped up in just like what I was doing, which is probably a big reason why I kind of like started feeling better, like not noticing. And then sure, there was a moment where I noticed. And it was probably like 4 years down the line into wakeboarding or 3 years. But I mean, it was small. It was probably like more like small revelations and stuff. There was a period that happened about 2 years into wakeboarding where I decided I was going to go off medicine. I never liked medicine. I think it's super useful and super helpful, but I didn't like the way it made me feel, as a kid, I was like diagnosed ADHD or whatever, and I didn't like that medicine either. And like, I kind of figured out how to make it work and was not on it when I did good in school and everything. So I kind of was like, I really want to get off this medicine. I feel like it's not me, which, that's not for everyone. Like some people,
it really is super beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's the medicine saved my life as well as many other things, Yeah. But I remember there was a point where I felt like I could do that. And that was about 2 years in, and I went off the medicine, and I literally was like having withdrawals and like shivers for like a week. And it was like pretty intense. And, I don't really know what that was. I don't even remember what medicine I was on.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I was on a lot of medicine at the like different types of medicine over 8 years. I could probably go back and look, but like in the end, it was just like a really hard thing to get off of, and that I was really down on like that week and stuff. But I got off of it, and just kind of anytime I was feeling down, it was like just go ride, I guess. And like, and there were tons of things, But I mean, wakeboarding was a key thing for me, and I still like partially worry like, if I don't wakeboard as much, or if I got hurt or something, like, would I kind of go back into being a little, I mean, I would be down, I would be off my board, and like, would that kind of start a spiral? However, like, I kind of also feel like I was told I'd be on antidepressants pretty much my whole life. Like that it was just something I was born with. And I kind of feel like I've found the formula that works for me in my life, and I just slowly tweaking that, and that kind of felt like I'm like, I'm good now. Like I don't feel like I'm depressed.
Have there been any moments since, I don't know, how old are you right now?
27.
27. Okay. Have there been any moments like in those, I guess actually I probably know the answer to that, but moments where it's like been not anything in your life's been causing you to kind of be depressed again, anything specific, just it kind of comes back and you're like, wow, I'm feeling pretty down for reasons I can't think of.
Yeah, the first few years, I felt like it was a yearly cycle. Like there was something that, and the weather's there's not much weather difference in Florida and seasons, but it felt like seasonal in a way where it was like closer to winter, I'd get really down, and closer to like holidays in December and stuff, specifically like Christmas time, I'm feeling really down. Not that it's necessarily related to Christmas, but that was just a hard time every year for me. And I think that continued for many years, like pretty much a 10-year. Like I still almost feel that cycle. I think the last few years, and maybe it's just intentional that I try to make sure I'm going out and doing fun things that excite me or like whatever, at that time to prevent it. But I almost still feel like there's a cycle there, and it's just a yearly type thing for me.
But it's kind of a part of your life you recognize and understand, and you're kind of counteracting.
Yeah. And like, I'm just super open about it. Like, I actually thought you would have known already and kind of realized you weren't going to bring it up, but most everyone in my life knows. Like, then I'm pretty open about it. And like, Dan from West Rock knows and everything, and like a ton of people know, where it's something that when it's kind of going on, I'm feeling that way, I just kind of let people know and like let people help me, or like we just do things to kind of get out of that funk, because you can get stuck in it, but if you can just get out of it right away before it even get kind of
Is it hard to be open about that when you're feeling like that to people, or is it something you've gotten used to and now you're like, this is actually going to help me?
Yeah, it's just something at this point that's like necessary. It's not even something I think about as a choice. It's kind of just like, oh, this is happening, I got to tell people, like, I guess at this point. But it was probably hard at first. I mean, at first the hardest thing is that like you feel like people don't understand. And like when you tell people, then they don't understand either. And they brush it off, or they don't take you seriously, or they think you want attention, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And that like trains you to think like, oh, I shouldn't tell anyone,
It's like a bad thing. Don't.
Yeah. Or like, they're just not going to understand. And it just makes it worse, which it did for a long time, made it worse to talk about it. Because the people around me just weren't the right people, you know? And like, that's why I know the people around me are the right people, and I can just talk about it. And it's even a lot of them don't understand. Like, they're just like, I don't understand, but I'm there for you. Like, for whatever. Like, it doesn't make sense in their mind, Yeah,
because some people just don't, never experience that. So they can't get on the same level of it. But if they're a person that, is important to you in your life and they understand you, then they'll understand what you're going through and what you need. So, yeah, that's super.
But I think that's important to, like, recognize sometimes when you don't understand, and be like,
yeah,
what do you need from me?
You don't know what you don't know. And sometimes people don't know. But recognizing that is huge. Is there anything else you want to kind of touch on with that, or is?
I mean, not necessarily. I'll probably jump back to it later in the podcast as we get to like more close to recent years. Mm-hmm. But
yeah, okay. So I guess we can kind of stay in that genre of your life, like late high school, I guess, and still getting into wakeboarding. I do want to talk about, like, as you're getting into wakeboarding, you get a setup, you get a 6-month pass, you get a year pass. You're progressing pretty quickly, I would imagine, you're riding every day, so obviously you're going to be progressing pretty quickly. Yeah. So just kind of walk me through, like, those first maybe 3 years of, were you getting any sponsors? Were you getting any attention? Were you winning any contests? Like, was there anything that was happening that was like, milestones in that region of your life?
Yeah, definitely. So I rode in beginner in points chase. I won nationals, and I was really hyped at the time.
Was it a sandbagger situation? Was that?
Well, not necessarily. I got last in my local the first week. It was just a quick progression. Like, for sure, by nationals, it was questionable that I should have been a beginner. Yeah. And it was in October that year. But my two friends at my local cable got second and third, and we just, I think, all progressed. And it was probably a little bit of that, but we didn't know any better. Like, we showed up at nationals thinking we're all on the same level, you know? And then also that would have been novice now. So it wasn't like quite, like, we added a division. Now it would be called novice. You could do threes, and someone else did a rally as a wild card, like an air rally off the flats and stuff. And
so I guess for people who don't understand, what were the divisions back then and what are they now?
It was beginner, intermediate, advanced, pro. And then we added like a novice division.
Below beginner.
And so it's beginner got bumped down, I guess. So it's beginner, novice,
gotcha,
intermediate, advanced, pro. So it would have been the novice, but I mean, it's hard to be sandbagging when you started like 3 months ago.
You have no idea. You're just like, I am a beginner. I'm beginning.
The next year I rode intermediate, and I got like last because I couldn't do air tricks, which is a kind of a story in itself.
Well, that's still true to this day, right? I'm just kidding.
You could say that. I learned a switch air trick during COVID. I was like, I should learn a switch air trick.
Yeah.
I'd never done one until COVID, which was 10 years into wakeboarding. So, I mean, it was crazy, but...
What's the story in and of itself there with the...
I'll make it quick, but essentially, air tricks were something I just thought I had to learn for points chase but being in Orlando, most of the people riding cable at that moment were boat riders coming to ride cable. Or, there was the good riders were boat riders, The features weren't around long enough to have, like, local pros. And they all just were like, air tricks are whack. Like, we don't want to do those or whatever. And so...
The boat riders were saying that?
Yeah, and honestly, part of me thinks that it was just, like, they never really learned them, and they didn't feel like going through the effort to learn a rally.
It's funny because that's all the tricks you do behind the boat are air tricks.
I mean...
I'm just kidding, but...
Well...
kind of serious.
But, like, back in the day, on the small wakes, they were hitting it like an air trick. They were fully loading and flicking, and that's how...
Well, yeah, they would do it on the outside of the wake. Like,
yeah.
Land your trick, go to the outside of the wake.
So, like, Darren and all of them were, like, hyped on it, But the new generation of boat riders were like, nah, you got to keep it tight and keep it close and grab your board, which we can all agree with. But air tricks were the old school boat riders. So, in a way, like, I don't even want to say that they were scared as much as, like, for sure, who wants to show up to a cable and be like, I got to learn a rally? Like, that's not that. But also, it didn't look cool because it looked like the
Super
old boat
stretched out,
riding that was not stylish,
Yeah.
So, I think it fully made sense, but it was just something no one did. Literally, the first roll to reaver, I was in air roll to reaver or Bel Air. I thought it was like a circus trick, like it was something like no one did seriously. You just like learn how to do an ollie backflip type thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's sick, but it was super low. ODub's horrible at the time. It was really bad for air tricks. So no one enjoyed them anyways. It was like doing them just for contest if you did them. And so I learned a rally off the dock because Jeff Trudeau, who's the man, was the manager of ODub, who's managed like all the cables in the southeast of America at this point, I feel like. And he came down and operated and was hyped on air tricks and was like, you need to learn a rally. And you're going to do it off the dock because I was going to do it to the inside. So he had me just like jump off the dock edge and flick under the cable. And ODub, super low cable, super long ropes. First time, land it, and I'm like super hyped. And then he's like, and I whip in after one lap. I'm like, let's do it again. Like, let's crank him out. And I go and I extend it longer. I come down and next thing I know, I wake up on the dock, boots fully strapped in. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about keep doing this. And my head hurt and everything, but I don't remember it. And then eventually I went and learned a roll to reaver and could do rally and roll to reaver and all that. But I rode an immediate, got last. Next year I was in pro. And I was like, because it was at that point. Well, the next year they added the features only division. Features wise, I was after 2 years at the quote pro level for points chase for the US and all that. And I rode in pro. And I don't remember how I did. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst, I think. And then, that kind of year 3, I actually like had an edit come out in May, and like 3 years exactly to riding. I've had a year every year and a half for a while at ODub. Like the first year and a half of riding. At year 3, I had another edit, and that edit like kind of blew up roughly, I guess, in the wakeboard scene, in the cable scene, and then. We went, and the first event was Triple Crown, and I got third in features only in pro. And so it was pretty much like 3 years into wakeboarding. I was like podiuming with people like Daniel Graham, Tom, and then Control was like, hey, we got to put you on like the pro team. And I mean, I was kind of getting flow already at that point
from CTO,
Control because they like Keith Lidberg who owned the company, like lived in Orlando and saw like the progression and was like, oh, we got to hook you up with the board,
Yeah.
And then they put me on the pro team, whatever that means, And, it was kind of like at that point was when I started just competing and doing all the events. And
so when you say whatever that means, what does that mean for you?
Well, at the time, there was basically like money on the table that never ended up coming into my pockets, if you know what I mean.
I don't know what you mean.
Control went out of business pretty quickly, but it was basically like, we want to pay you. Like, you're a pro to us, all this stuff. And
No
this
contract,
is
though.
what we're going to pay you.
Yeah.
And we don't have money right now, though. We're tight in developing the new products for the next year. And
Technical Research Lab, right? That's what CTRL is.
I don't know.
I think it could be. I don't know. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, long story short, the company basically stopped paying other pros at that same time because they had no money, and then they filed bankruptcy, which also voids the contracts or whatever.
But you did sign a contract, or no?
I had not yet.
Okay.
No. But the other pros, like
Phil was on.
Phil was on.
Yeah.
Phil kind of came in the beginning of 2014, and I started riding in the middle. And pretty much, from my understanding, Phil came in and invested money into the company to build his board and everything.
Yeah.
But the money went a lot quicker than they thought, and they couldn't pay riders. I mean, we can go down a whole rabbit hole of why Control ended up not working out, but
yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, well, basically they had similar boots to Slingshot's track system.
The fast track or whatever.
Yeah, kind of similar to how Slingshot boots are now, and the boots were good, but the boards didn't have sidewalls at first, and they were just blowing out all the time, and they got a reputation for having bad boards. And by the time they fixed it, there was no coming back, which is a parallel to Joby, which we'll get to later. But so pretty much they just earned a reputation of having really bad product because the product came out almost too quickly without enough testing.
Yeah.
And they had the most insane team, though. If you know back then, they had Leo Sofer, Matty Hassler, Ann Schreiber, Keith Lidberg, Phil Sovin hopped on, and then I was on the team, and I was like, yo, I'm
teammates with like this squad.
And Matty Hassler and Ange actually got me a lot on that team, too, because I was like doing events with them, and they saw that. They helped me a lot, like just like giving me guidance a little bit.
Yeah.
I love those two. They're amazing. And I think they just got married. So congrats to you two, like last week. But yeah, I guess all those guys stopped getting money. The company basically like went out of business at the end of 2014.
Yeah.
And I mean, verbally there was like an offer, but it never panned out.
It happened too quickly for it to come to fruition there. So, they made a resurgence now. They're selling boards again. Well, it's
not the same people, but the same brand,
4
I
letters.
guess. And same boards, actually, I think. And the boards were fine at the end. I mean, they didn't break that much. Like, they made them wood core. And
once they got it all figured out, it was pretty good,
just,
but it was too little too late.
Yeah, I think that's something in wakeboarding that, like, once your product gets a reputation of, like, not lasting, then it's almost impossible to come back from that.
Yeah.
Unless you're already huge and the reputation isn't as big as your company. But when the reputation gets to the size of the company, which happened with Joby, which...
Yeah, I mean, that shows the importance of, like, you want to be quick to market, but you can't rush to the point where it's going to be a product that you might as well not start the company then, you know what I mean? So, anyways, maybe not getting to Joby yet. So, Control kind of fizzles out. What does that look like for you, you know, still riding? Obviously, that becomes an awesome thing, and then it's like, shit.
Okay, so actually, I can just keep talking through the next year because it has a lot to do with Control, actually. So
let her rip, Johnny D.
At that point, I started making some podiums in 2014. I made some money. I saved it up. I want to go to Worlds, which is in Dubai, or Abu Dhabi at the time. 2014, same year. 3 years into wakeboarding, my dad was like, you're absolutely crazy. Like, they were super supportive of wakeboarding. And this is kind of why I brought in the whole thing with the depression and everything, because it was like, yo, anything you need, like, we got you. We're supportive and all this. But when it came to, like, I want to go to some random country in the Middle East, they were like, heck no. And also, we are not paying for that. Like, why? Like, you're doing good in, like, these American events, but, and basically, I was 18 at the time, 19 maybe, and I guess I could have clarified too. I started college when I was 16 at UCF.
Humble brag.
No, but it's part of the story because I was living on campus when I was 17. In my own dorm and everything. So at this point, like, I've been living on my own for 2 years. I'm not going to, like, sure, you won't pay for it, but I'm going to this place. And they basically told me you can't go. And I was like, they thought it was dangerous. My parents have never been out of the country, and they just thought
your
Middle
parents
East.
thought that.
Sorry, my parents said you can't go.
Okay, I thought because you were saying Joby wasn't on board.
No, I'm still on Control. They hadn't fallen away yet. Or, like, they hadn't gone out of business at this point. This is like 3 months after they told me, we're going to put you on the pro team, you know? My parents were like, oh, you can't go to, like, the Middle East. It's so dangerous. And I wasn't going to go. And Holly Waldrop, her dad, I think it was her dad, messaged me and was like, you need to come out here. You would kill it out here. They came out early. And I was like, I can't go, and it's expensive and this and that. He found me a flight, and he's like, book this flight. Come stay with me. The flight was left in 18 hours. And he found a good deal. And he's like, I'll pick you up from the airport. You can stay with us. And I was like, okay. So I booked the flight with my money that I won in the other events, and then went and stayed with them and just like rode the contest. I ended up meeting people like Andy Kolb there and Vossi. And Vossi owns Wake Tools and Wake Tools Wake Park, but Wake Tools the shop at the time, and he was the control distributor and he was a judge. And I ended up getting somewhere around like tying for 5th or whatever, what that situation was, just missing finals by 1 spot. And they were hyped on my riding, and he was like, I want you to come out and promote control in Germany and come stay on my cable. And like, I think that the European scene needs to see this. And so pretty much we kept in contact. I left there. I went to Thailand to a contest. I won money with that 5th place and used that to go to Thailand, won some money there, used that to go to Australia, kind of just kept it going, and went to cable stock in those events, came home. And I mean, I came home between Abu Dhabi and Australia as well. Like, I just went for the week and came home. But then between Thailand and Australia, I was gone for a bit. And when I came home from Abu Dhabi and I got 5th, my dad was like, wow, like, actually, maybe you can do something with this. You know, like, maybe you have some potential. And I was wrong to say, don't go.
You didn't get hurt over there, and you kind of
and I won,
had a provable result.
And there was decent money for 5th back then.
What was it?
I don't remember, but it was $1,000 or something or more. Like, and for 5th, that's pretty good right now. And so I think it was probably like $1,250, $1,500.
Okay.
And my dad was like, well, that paid for your flight, and I didn't really pay that much else being there. And was like, I guess you can do this, and it was way more supportive at that point, which is kind of crazy. That flipped pretty quickly for that. Went to Thailand, stayed there, stayed in Australia with Courtney, who I had already become good friends with, Courtney Angus, and then flew back home, did the thing in America, and then at the end of that year, I graduated college.
At the ripe age of?
I think I was just turned 20.
Cool.
And I left from college graduation, from the actual graduation in my gown to the airport, because I didn't have time for my flight that went to FEAS, that event. And 2015 was just a good year as far as events go. And I just kind of kept making money, using that to keep going. But actually, Vossi said, hey, come to my park and all this stuff. He gave me $1,500 to pay for my trip, my flight and everything. So
sick.
I'm not going to say I couldn't have done it, like make it to Europe necessarily without just the $1,500. But it avoided having to ask my parents, which they pretty much had said they weren't going to support the internet. If I want to do this as a pro, I have to do it on my own as a pro, you know? And it allowed me to stay out there for longer. And I stayed at his cable, and I spent 3 months in Europe, and I went to all the events. I went to tons of cables. I went to like plastic playgrounds and all that stuff. And that was kind of like I don't know if which one I'd call my rookie year, but that was like the tour, you know, through Europe and whatever, and did a lot of events. And I will say I got 4th at plastic playgrounds that year, and the prize money for 4th was $3,000 for 4th. There was money at events at the time. So I was kind of going around like making some checks, even though I wasn't winning. It was still some checks, different places. So it was, those were the good days for me. But yeah, I don't know. That was basically at that point, it just kind of kept going. So
okay, so kind of run through that year. I guess I want to know about like the control to Job or Joby.
Okay,
so how you say it. Was it Joby?
Yes,
Joby.
That's how they say it where they are. But in a lot of countries say it differently, I guess, pronounce it differently. But proper is Joby.
Kosher is Joby.
Joby.
Okay.
So actually, control basically fell apart at the beginning of 2015. And Vossi said, first of all, Vossi deserves an air horn. Because
I don't have that capability, but
he's been and he won't get talked about enough in this podcast, but he was such a big influence in my career, everything I've done like in the industry, and just like him believing in me and offering to do that also just went a long way, you know, and then giving me a place to stay. He's just been a super good mentor and like always helped me out a ton. And we're still super good friends to this day, and like I see him all the time. I go to his cable every year, and he's the best. But he basically Jesus, beers, man.
It's Milwaukee's best, man. Only the best.
He basically knew what was happening with control, but had kept his word and said, I'm going to still pay for it. I'm still going to bring you out because he's a sick dude.
Damn, yeah.
Yeah.
That's sick.
So good. So if you're in Europe, shop at Wake Tools.
Get those Wake Tools wake pants.
Yeah, that's what
rock
I'm
up
wearing.
to your local cable with those bad boys on.
Yeah, so I went through that without a board sponsor pretty much the whole year, and did pretty good. Like I made finals at Feast, which got me the invite to Plastics, and then kept going. And then in October at the end of 2015, actually basically right after Feast, Joby was like, we want to sponsor you because Julian and Yanel already rode for them, and Julian was basically just telling them like, you need to get this kid, and they were like, we'll give you free boards, and I was like, yeah, that's not gonna work for me. Like,
I was already almost making some money with
I was
control.
almost getting some cheddar bisque, and I'm making good money, which we'll talk about at the end of 2015 year from events and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I basically told them that I wasn't gonna do it, and that like I'm interested, but like let's just see how this year goes. And I had a feeling I was kind of doing good, and I knew what tricks I could do, and kind of what the year was gonna lead to. And I made a lot of finals and just kept going. And I made an edit in October at OWC, which is probably my favorite edit I've made, actually. And I don't think a lot of people have seen it because it's so old. But I dropped that the week of Worlds, and I went to Worlds in Abu Dhabi again, and I got third. And I basically did it on a Joby board and control bindings because I was like, I like your boards, but I'm not going to ride. I'm not going to, like, show people I ride for you.
But nothing's official at this point. It's just like you got a board.
No, it was like we were talking, but I was not riding for them at all. Like I was still looking for any sponsor, but I was like, I like your board. Julian's giving them to me for free as like a homie.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I'm riding the board and I'm riding his board, but I'm riding control bindings because I was like, I'm not gonna ride your bindings, and like people assume I ride for
I'm
you.
an advertisement for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got third and dropped that video, which did pretty good also. And they basically called me up right after and offered me a contract, and there was money and all that type of stuff. And so it was definitely worth it to hold out on that one.
There was money, huh?
Yeah, there was good money.
What kind of money?
Actually, at first, their contracts, a lot of contracts are this way back in the day. They were all incentive based, which I can go to, but let me just break it down quickly. If I got a video on any wakeboard website that they approved and they made a list of all the wakeboard websites, up to 5 websites per video, I'd get $200 per website per video.
So same video could be on 4 different websites.
And
It's
I'd get
800
800.
bucks. Gotcha.
Max $1,000. That's when it capped. So I started making a video a month.
You're not the only person who went with this technique when they have a video incentive in their contract, but
No,
it's
for
smart.
sure.
I mean,
I
you'd be
think they were.
stupid not
I think
to.
they were the same time. They were like 3 of us that were doing it.
Yeah.
Like every month was an edit dropping. There was no Instagram videos. Instagram, I don't think did video at the time, or it was brand new and it was not a thing you put your clips on.
It's pretty shitty, yeah, when it first started.
Yeah, so it was basically like your Instagram edits now. We'd make them 2 minutes to 3 minutes, 2 minutes of riding, like what you'd put on Instagram now, and 2 Instagram clips, and just put up an edit from Terminus Wake Park, my trip to Terminus Wake Park. And you just go on a trip, you'd make $1,000, you'd use the $1,000 to kind of pay for it, but you were already getting hooked up at cables. You're already getting like staying with friends. Like, I mean, we were doing it, this was 2016 after a whole year of like doing good in events and everything. So, I mean, we were definitely bringing it. That was just video incentive. Then there's photo incentive. You get photos in a mag. Well, Unleashed ran a lot of mags at the time, and they wanted content that they didn't have to pay for. So all you had to do is get a homie to shoot you a photo and give it to Unleashed and say, like, you don't need to pay my photographer because Joby's paying me for the photo.
Yeah.
And you got some good photo incentive too. So
What was
I
the
mean,
photo incentive?
I don't remember that one. It wasn't that good, but there was no cap. So like per mag, you could have like 4 photos on.
So yeah, the idea was just get a shit ton of photos, send them in.
Yeah.
Good enough ones.
It didn't have to show Joby it didn't have to show the board Joby. Like you just had to be you in the photo.
Yeah.
I think it had to show the board. Like it couldn't be lifestyle without a
Yeah,
board.
yeah.
But it didn't have to say Joby on the bottom of the board. Nothing had to be visible. You didn't have to be a certain size. And so, I mean, I definitely made over $12,000 that year, like $1,000 a month on average for that first year.
With your contract and then all the incentives included.
Yeah. Well, it was just incentives the first year.
What was was there like a base?
No, it was just incentives.
Oh, it was just
incentives. There was
Okay.
travel budget. Sorry, there was travel
Gotcha.
budget, which was like $3,000, and then I made $12,000. I made that year. I don't know the number, but from a board company, that was probably the most money I've ever made. Maybe this year is different, but it was pretty good. It was up there. Like again, I don't remember. We had the same contract for 2 years. And then they basically like, the goal was make so much money that it's a better deal for them to just give you salary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just pick a number. And then you can kind of coast, but not really coast because.
Not coast, but it's
we were
easier
interested
for you.
in
You don't have to be
coasting.
super heavy focused on like pumping out all these videos and getting all these
Yeah,
photos.
it's something in your head where you're like, I need to make an edit on this trip. Like every trip I make an edit.
Yeah.
Like if we go on a trip, we make an edit, which was dope. Like
It's
motivation.
good for wakeboarding for sure.
And it was good motivation and it was fun. Like I love making videos. So, I mean, but I will say I have 30 wakeboard edits that are like not a part, but like a wakeboard edit. Like, and they're thought out. They were filmed like you would film an edit today. Like they weren't like, here's a bunch of random. I didn't want to do it cheaply, you know? I wanted those edits to be something people looked at and thought like, this is my favorite rider, you know?
Yeah.
And Seb Toots did a lot of them too. Like Mammoth, Seb Toots had one at Mammoth and all this stuff. And I watched those and thought they were sick. And I remember him doing them like once a month. And I was like, I want people to have the same reaction to me. I don't want them to just think, I didn't want to just cash a check. Like I wanted to build my name and just get paid doing it. So it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. And
there might be one edit that I filmed that I'm not stoked on because I was kind of hurt, but like felt like I needed to. But every other edit, I'm proud that they're out there, you know? It's not like we were just making cheap bucks, you know, and just doing.
Yeah, you're still pushing
it.
your riding. And
yeah, we
filming
were
the best
like
you
pushing hard for those edits. So it was
That's
a really
sick.
good motivation to like get after it. And I kind of wish companies did this more now. Like, why not incentivize people? And, you know, there's tons of ways you would do it differently now, but like for proper edits because we need more of them. And, you know, if you care about your riding, like you're not gonna just half-ass it to get the check, you know?
Yeah, definitely not.
So
And if you get to that position, you probably care about your riding quite a bit. So I guess I kind of want to continue with Job, unless if there's something else in that time of your life that you want to kind of dive into. But
no, not really. Pretty much. I mean, yeah, it just kind of went on with Job. 2016 was not as good as 2015 as far as events go and stuff. But I was focused on videos at that point. So that's when I kind of transitioned from like, I didn't need to do all the contests to make money, which was the point of contest to us at that point. Yeah. Was make money and get your name out there.
Build your name up. Yeah.
And now I was like, I can do that through edits. And also I had got to a point where I'd done enough in contests where no matter what the edit was, like the websites were putting it up. Like I was there was not one edit I didn't make $1,000 because it was just thrown up on everything. Yeah. So yeah, there was a slight transition to being more filming focused, but just kind of kept going.
Okay. So 2 years on Joby, is that it?
Yeah, maybe 3 on contract. I don't remember because at some point I thought I was 2 years incentive. I guess I could do the math in my head, but 2018 was the last year.
You got an MIT. You should probably be able to do that math quick.
2018 was the last year. And so 2016, 2017, 2018 was 3 years of contracts. There was some hybrid money, and then the last year was just salary. They were basically, they put so for any wakeboarders coming up listening to this, they tried to put a cap on my incentives and say, well, we want to cap it at $6,000 or something like this because this is ridiculous how much we're having to pay you for videos. And I was like, no, that's not how this works. Like, that is not how the point of incentives. Like, you pay me to do the work, and if I do the work, I get paid. And I was like, if you think that I'm worth this much, you already have data showing I'm going to make this much, just give it to me in salary. Yeah. So I was like, whatever that cap was, I want that in a check every month. And there was some hybrid of salary and some hybrid of travel budget, and it ended up being something like $500 a month and then travel or whatever. And so, but they didn't go less. Like, it was like $6,000 cap, and I was like, no, that's just $500 a month. And they said yes to it because it's like, you already put your number out there as a company that you were willing to pay me this. So like, you're paying me
that's
this.
That's what it's
going to be. And I just stuck to it, and they did it. So
okay.
So there was 3 years of Joby.
3 years of Joby, and the last year was that like contract with the incentives were done, and it was just straight money there. So I guess, I'm curious on how that relationship ended, unless there's anything else you want to talk about before that. Yeah,
well, I'll jump into 2017 because the way I view my career was like the first 4 years kind of the same, just contest, filming a ton of videos. And we were still filming before the incentives too, but filming hard, doing some contests. 2017, Landfoot Open, which was a big turning point in my career to me.
I feel like that's a separate, like,
That was before. That was the middle of Joby, though, like halfway through Joby.
Yeah, but that's a whole different story. So if you want to dive into that now, or do you want to do that after this?
Well, I
like,
think
Joby?
we go into that now, and then we can go into like Joby switching, because
Right.
Joby ending goes straight into Sponsor Me Tape. So
Oh yeah,
Maybe
and I
let's
can't wait to
not
talk
talk
about
there.
that. All right, yeah, let's talk about LAO. So, I mean, I feel like you've kind of told this story a couple times, so I don't really want to like bog it down with asking a bunch of back and forth questions. If you just kind of want to,
yeah, there's an edit on it if you're interested.
watched
You can
it.
watch
Yeah,
that.
it was-
Not you, but like if they're interested, they can.
Tim did it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
No.
sorry.
Buckman
did it.
Yeah, I watched
Buckman
that.
Ferguson. It was a school
week
project
ago.
for Full Sail, and he did that. And
Yeah,
that
it's
was
a good
pretty
video.
cool.
I would recommend everyone go watch that.
Yeah, it was like a mini documentary. They had to do it. That was, I think, the only edit I didn't edit myself, pretty much. And he had to do it for a school project, and he already knew the story. We were super close at the time, and he offered to do the documentary. And yeah, that video means a lot to me because, I mean, if you watch it, you'll understand. But it's cool to have that documented, you know?
Yeah, it's a really cool, and he put it together. I think he did a really good job with it. So definitely recommend watching that. What's it called?
It's called The Road to Langenfeld.
The Road to Langenfeld. Okay, typed it in on the YouTubes and give that a watch. But is there anything? Do you want to run through that, or like do you want to kind of do the cliff notes of it? It's kind of up to you.
I mean, yeah, it's long. I guess this goes back a little bit.
It's a really
2015
interesting though. So
2015, end of all of the Europe tour for like 3 months. I go to Abu Dhabi, get third at Worlds, and get some money there, and decide I'm gonna go to Australia for the winter and work there. At that point, the exchange rate was really good. It was like the thing. JB started it. You go there, you work at the cable, you make a ton of money, you save as much as you can, you come back, it's like doubled, and you made good money, and that was just like a thing you did, you know. So I went to Australia and lived there and worked at the cable, and well, there's so much that we're jumping over that I feel like is important, so I'm gonna jump back real
I
quick.
did want to talk about Australia too, but keep going.
Well, if we can pause the Langenfeld, I'll
All right, we're hitting the pause button on LAO.
because it's so important, because my dad, it starts at Australia. So
Okay, so yeah, Take
so
from the top.
2015, I moved to BSR and lived at BSR for 3 months and worked at the cable. I worked out a deal with the cable park owner, and this was my dad's idea, to go to him and say, hey, I'll work for you for a certain amount of hours a week, and I get free stay, free riding, free food, and drinks from the bar, but not alcohol because I wasn't even 21 yet. And he agreed to it. And at first, it wasn't even a deal. It was like, hey, just come teach some wakeboarding. Like, they wanted me to kind of be the coach, local pro coaching. And it ended up me just sitting on the 2.0 for a lot of hours, teaching kids how to wakeboard, which is I actually loved. But in the end, we agreed on 15 hours a week because people were like, hey, can you cover me for now? And they're just not coming back and stuff. So I was working 15 hours a week to stay in a cabin at BSR, to eat as much food and drink as much drinks as I wanted in the bar, just start a tab that I never paid, never had to pay.
non-alcoholic drinks,
Yeah.
just a bunch of
Sorry, like whatever it was.
Coca-Colas or
I drank a lot of Dr. Pepper.
a lot of DR Pep. All right,
But I could bring my own alcohol and like mix it or whatever. They don't care. It was super chill.
you weren't 21 though, John.
I mean, I don't know if I did this. I think I didn't even drink at this time, actually. No, I didn't. But I've been to BSR many years for many months.
Yeah. Anyways, continue.
But it was pretty relaxed. And then I could ride as much as I want and everything. It was a really good deal.
Yeah.
But I did that because I wanted to. My dad brought me to the cable park, thinking that, like, at first there was a period where he wanted to open his own cable park, and he thought
Really,
that he had the vision of what they are today, and
of what BSR is today.
yeah, I guess actually more like what like known as or something, like
Okay.
of what the German cable parks are. We don't really do it still here, but have a nice restaurant. People want to sit
And
in.
all encompassing.
They want to watch
business,
wakeboarding.
yeah.
He didn't really think about aqua parks at the time, but just like activities for people to do in a restaurant people can sit and watch. And he was like, I want to open a wakeboard park. And that was kind of our thing. And that was something that wakeboarding was the first thing in my life that, well, my dad liked football, but like I wasn't as into it actually, that we like both loved like water sports related, you know? And so, his idea was go to BSR, work there with the intent to learn how to run a cable park so you can open your own cable park.
Yeah.
At the time at BSR, there was no lazy river, there was no slides, there was none of this, but there were many 2.0s, and there was plans to do the slide and everything. And I moved out there, lived out there, and just learned how to run a business. So that was 2015. And I lived out there with Graham, lived out there at the same time, actually. And Yanel came, stayed for a long time. We had a pretty cool crew with the three of us just riding, pushing ourselves, and I learned a lot of tricks there. And then fast forward, and at 2015, that was 2014. I think I said that wrong earlier. 2015, end of that whole European summer, I went to Australia to live and work at Penrith because, from my understanding at the time, aside from like Langenfeld, that was the most profitable cable in like a first world country, like not a Thailand where the labor is super cheap. So I was like, I'm gonna go there and learn how to run it all, and both owners understood this and was like kind of a mentor thing, and they were super stoked to have me. And I worked all different positions, and I got to learn cable parks, and that was a big reason why I went to Australia for 6 months. And you said you wanted to bring it up, so I don't know if you have more. I was just trying to say that was like,
I didn't have any specific questions,
reason.
but I wanted to like kind of hear about. I mean, you were there for 6 months at kind of the beginning of your career, so there's probably a lot that happens there, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, I
learning.
mean, Aaron Gunn was killing it at the time. That's his home cable. Where
This
I
is
lived.
2016?
Yeah, 2016.
So is that right when he was getting on Sling? 2017 he got on?
It was in we filmed the Welcome to the Team video when I was there, and I drove I operated the cable for a lot of that video.
That's a sick video.
The intro, he's wearing my shirt. Like, he didn't have a shirt or something, and he's like, I love the shirt. Can I just wear the shirt? And he's wearing like my T-shirt and everything, and I'm like holding the light reflector and all that. And so that was super cool. I got to see that. And we filmed at the same time a video on the Felix rail, and I was in the video with like Felix, Busty, Aaron, Stefan, and me, I guess. And we filmed a lot of videos there. But it was an important time. Nah, there's so many. I don't want to take I don't want to take like 5 hours on this podcast, but in Australia, we ended up living in a house together. There's so many stories from Australia with the mom and her 3 kids that were 5, 7, and 14. And it was me and 3-bedroom house with those 3. And I had met the mom the year before when I had went for like a month, and that's where I organized everything. It was me and my friend Adam Whitaker was looking for a place and everything from Canada, who used to come to Orlando every winter, and I convinced him to come to Australia with me. And she's like, okay, you can stay there. And then I forget what happened, but Tanner Pigrenay, who's from California, and Ryan Peacock were supposed to stay at the cable in the accommodation because they have like full accommodation there. It's a pretty nice place. I mean, the accommodation is more like bunk beds everywhere, like a hostel, but it's a sick location. And the year before, we all stayed there, and I guess we were a little too rowdy, and they said no one can come and stay here and work here anymore. Like, no employees can work here. We basically got banned, but no one was really told until we came back the next year. And they were under the impression they could stay there again.
Yeah.
And they were working at the cable, and they showed up, and they were like, the cable was like, you can stay here for a week, but you got to find a place to stay. We're all pretty broke at this time, you know. Like, I mean, I'm making a little bit of money here and there, but it's not like I'm getting consistent income all the time to like pay rent somewhere. And I'd already moved back home with my parents. So Ryan Peacock, Tanner Pigrenay, myself, and Adam Whitaker lived with a single mom and her 3 kids, 2 of which are 5 and 7, in a 3-bedroom house that's like 1,500 square foot floors for 6 months.
Jeez.
There was the 2 kids slept with the mom for 6 months. One kid had his own room and shared it with like, I think he shared it with. Maybe he slept in his parents' room. I don't know. Me and Adam were in one room. Adam had a bed, like a twin bed, and I had a like not even a mattress on the floor, like a mattress topper, like a foam
pad,
topper on the floor, and small rooms. And then I think Ryan and Tanner were next door, and like the 4 of them were in the bedroom, and they had put 2 beds in the master bedroom that was bigger. And then the 2 little kids slept with the mom, and the one kid had his own bed in there. It was crazy.
You were paying rent or no?
No rent.
And the mom was just cool with this.
Australia was crazy. Yeah, the mom was chill with it. She let us use a car to drive to the cable. We bought food.
This is like basically a sugar mama situation. Is what's going on here,
dude. I feel pretty guilty at it, that we did this and like didn't treat her better, but we just didn't know better. It was just kind of one of those things like. Every wakeboarder lets everyone else stay in their house. So we were like, okay, like we'll just scratch at this mom. And like she was sick. Her son wakeboarded. He wasn't like insane. Like he was like intermediate level, but he was super cool. But I mean, he's 14. We're like 20. Like we're not like friends. Like we weren't like hanging out all the time before we stayed at his house. We became really close, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure. We mowed our lawn. We did the dishes. We made food for the whole family every night. We took turns. We weren't
that's
bad.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I just feel bad because looking back, like she didn't have a lot of money, and you know, and we were working on the cable. But I mean, for myself, I was trying to just be a pro wakeboarder. Like I was working the minute, like similar situation to ride for free and kind of just pay for food, but like as minimal as I could while still learning everything I can about the cable. But mostly I just did summer camps.
Yeah.
For the times when it was super busy already, and then rode when it wasn't summer camp. That was a sick time though. We used to have Nerf gun wars where we'd like put like Nerf needles in the end of Nerf guns,
like
the bullets or whatever.
No, what do you got? What I've done that before. What's the thumbtacks in the end of it? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I guess. I feel like they were longer, like sewing needles, but we shoved them in pretty far in there, and you were only out if it stuck into you. But we just never stopped playing. And there's a 5 and a 7-year-old in the house. As long as they were not in the living room, guns were going off pretty much. And man, how graphic can I get on this?
As much as you
there
want.
There was one time where Tanner Piggernay was taking a shower, and he came out in like white boxer briefs and like walks out into the living room, like pretty much similar to the situation, just out of the hallway into the center of a living room. And Ryan's sitting there, like heard the shower turn off, and he's just sitting there right there. And I think it was Ryan, and he shoots him. And right as he walks, he turns, it goes straight into his dick, into the shaft. And he pulls it out, and he's wearing white boxer briefs, and you can see it's stuck in. Pulls it out, you can see the blood start to like puddle in his white, and he drops to the floor and everything, and he's like in pain, and you can see the blood.
God.
Oh, bro, that's one of my like most vivid, funniest memories, because it was like you cannot forget a moment of that.
Absolutely not.
But every night, me and Ryan like would put on Skate 3, or we'd put on games of Skate from the barracks, and we'd fall asleep to the sound of skateboarding because we just thought it was so sick. Like we had so many cool things we did there. We played Skate 3 like all day, every day,
Solid
pretty much
game.
when we weren't
Very
working.
solid game.
And yeah, it was just super. It was like everything you'd ever want, like in life at that age, you know, at 20, just like living with all the homies, like not worrying about a thing, not paying rent, like just
wakeboarding all the time.
Wakeboarding all the time, working at the cable. Like it was like out of a movie. It was insane. And like they had 2 full-size cables, and the owner was super rad, and like which by the way is Busty and Courtney Angus's parents. Like they co-owned it, and there were times where we'd like ghost ride the cable, like pretty much all the time. As long as someone was kind of standing around, like, or we just agreed not to do air tricks, we would just ride the advanced cable all the time. They had just gotten all the sickest features, which was another reason a lot of the riders went.
Yeah.
These beers, man.
Yeah, you've only had one.
I gotta
so
open
far.
this one. By the way, this sound, I love this sound.
It's a good sound.
In the microphone, it's
beautiful.
So, yeah, we were going to bars all the time. Like the mom was partying with us and going out with us. Like she obviously had an ex-husband, and the little ones would go, but the older one always stayed with her.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were different parents or what the situation was, but we got super close with that kid. I mean, there's a time when I was like laying in the dorm rooms at like sleeping like this, like up like in the dorm rooms with my hand behind my head, and the 14-year-old came and like lit my armpit hairs on fire, and that's what woke me up.
It's like a jackass house is what's going on here.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good time, and that was like I was not as sendy as I am now, I guess, or like fearless, and I was like the most timid one in the house, and they were just like, dude, always wrestling. We got boxing gloves and we're boxing, and like
that's the beginning of
stuff.
Tanner's boxing MMA career, probably, right?
I think that's the beginning of it, actually.
Because he's super into that now, it seems like.
I didn't even know that, but I remember him boxing just like for fun with friends. But I think it started there. Like Ryan probably had that idea or something.
Yeah,
Ryan's pretty crazy. Like he'll try anything and do anything. Like
love it.
He's pretty nuts. So, anyways, it was just like you could go on for stories for hours about like that house and everything, but.
All right, we'll put a pin in that. I forgot why we even started talking about Australia. I'm
gonna get to that.
Okay, get to it.
So pretty much, when I got to Australia in December, the beginning of this time, I got a call that my dad was sick.
In
and
Australia,
he went to the hospital. Like when I was in Australia.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But my family basically didn't tell me what was going on. Yeah, so this is why I wanted to kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
They didn't really tell me what was going on. So I was in Australia for like 4 months at least after this. And I I knew he had gone to the hospital, and they basically told me like everything was good. He's good to go. He's back home. It was kind of a scare, whatever. And I kind of went on, but things they thought that actually at first when they told me
Really?
that. And then like pretty quickly after, probably a week or two, I'm not 100% sure. Things started going like progressively, like slowly getting worse. But they just didn't tell me because they didn't want to like take away. My dad was like he didn't want anyone to like, he's independent. He doesn't want people to take care of him. He feels really guilty if someone's taking care of him, if someone's even bringing him food or something because he can't get out of bed. He feels guilty. So he didn't want me to know. He basically had everyone keep it a secret from me. And I came home and I realized like my dad was in a pretty bad situation and like couldn't really walk. He had a condition. The syndrome is called Gillian-Bray syndrome, I believe. And there's some chronic version of this that I forget the name, but which essentially what happens is your brain mixes up your nerve endings and like bad cells, and it just attacks your nerves, thinking that they're bad cells. Well, in Gillian-Bray syndrome, you lose all your feeling from your legs all the way up till you cannot breathe anymore, and they put you on a ventilator. And then after like a week of this, of the whole process is a week, you can start to gain feeling back, and then you lose all your muscles because muscles go quick actually if you don't use them, and you have to go through like a year of rehab to get your muscle back. It's like a year process, about a month of the main recovery to feel everything, the whole process of losing nerve endings and them growing back, and then you just like trying to rehab and strengthen and that type of stuff. So my dad had this essentially while I was in Australia, but it stopped at his waist and kind of came back, and he grew the nerve endings back, and they thought it was just a symptom, but then it kept having like flare-ups where he wasn't fully able to feel everything again. And so I came home and he wasn't really able to walk. And that basically continued on from mid-2016 that next year. So that whole year from coming home was pretty much just me staying at home all the time, or like mixing trips where I have a twin sister, and she would stay home and take care of him when I went on trips, and I'd come home and be on full time. Pretty much not wakeboarding when I was at home at all, like only wakeboarding on trips, but going to like events because he still wanted me to do events. And at that time, we weren't fully sure about him. They didn't know what it was at all, really. We didn't know if it was going to be fatal or what the situation was. So I was still kind of going on trips, and we didn't know if it was going to last like just his whole life or what. And I feel really bad for my sister because, you know, for me, being on 24/7 when I was home, it was tough, but it was like a choice, I guess, that I made, you know. And for her, my family, the rest of my family was supposed to help, I guess, a little more, but we don't really have that much immediate family. And after a while, it just turned into her doing stuff 24/7 when she was home, and she got kind of roped into it, and her whole life got on pause while I'm still kind of pursuing my dream or whatever. And she's just stuck at home, you know, taking care of my dad and then she fully had freedom when I was home. And in my mind, I was like, well, we're splitting 50-50 at the moment, but it was like really not fair to her to just get stuck in that situation. And not like, I could have done a better job as like a man, I guess. I hate that term. But like getting my family to kind of help more and like asking more from my family, because she was super quiet and just didn't want to bug anyone in our family either. Yeah. And so she got kind of just short end of the stick. And so that was really hard for her and really hard on our relationship in some ways, because we didn't see each other for that year because we pretty much rotated through taking care of him and then being kind of away. And then I think there was some disagreements at that time about me wanting to, like me thinking it was fair in her. And it wasn't fair, you know, but I didn't understand fully. Yeah. And I didn't understand the weight she was taking on either necessarily when I was gone. I wasn't really paying much attention. And so it got to a point where it started going up through his whole body and he couldn't move his arms. And it was pretty much like someone who's paralyzed from the neck down for months. And that happened pretty quickly after I got back from Australia. And that's when it got too much on everyone. And we hired someone to help out, but it just, you know, I mean, he had a like a bag in his stomach. He couldn't go to the bathroom, you know. He couldn't move anything. So it would just like automatically go to the bathroom in this bag, and we had to like change this bag out that's like cut into his stomach, which was pretty graphic.
Yeah, my uncle actually had, not to interrupt you, but same thing. he had colon cancer. They do the same thing, and it's pretty graphic, and it's definitely like an intense process to
And
be
if
around.
you're not there quick enough, the back can just overflow and basically go everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
And then that's a mission. It was a lot. But at the end, the last part of this, I actually jumped. I messed up my years. This happened the first. This went on for like 2 years of this.
Okay.
Because I was still in college the first year, and there was a period when I went to the hospital, and I like slept in the hospital, in like a little couch bed thing for like a month while I was doing school and everything. So this was going on for 2 years. It must have happened the first year I was in Australia, which I was on for like an extended trip, but I guess it wasn't the quite full 4 months of everything. So I guess my parents kept it a secret for like a month or two.
Yeah.
From me. And then this went on for like the whole time, but he did get better when I went to Australia for the 6 months. So it was tough. I mean, this was the time when I'm going to Europe a ton and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy. And so we were just, like I said, I was like sleeping in the hospital for like a month, and there was no real wakeboarding. You know, every once in a while I'd go ride because I felt like I had to like learn a trick for an event coming up.
Yeah.
But it was like really just to go hit kickers and brush up on it, you know. So 2017, things started to look better. We flew him up to Chicago to put him in like a rehab facility, and then everything was looking almost the best it had looked for a while. And I left Chicago. My girlfriend at the time went with me to take him to Chicago, and then we flew from Chicago home for like a day, I guess, to get our bags and go to Amsterdam, which I always did, to see Joby, and then drive down to Langenfeld. And so we drove down to Langenfeld, took a train down to Langenfeld, and on the train I got a call from my mom about that, and that kind of goes into I guess the whole story about. But I got a call that my dad passed away when I was on the train to Langenfeld, and did that whole thing at Langenfeld, and I guess I repeated a lot of what was already in the documentary, but
Yeah, but I mean that's the story. So the story, I think you want it to be told, obviously. So I guess you want to kind of start at that phone call and then run through LAO, or
I mean it's pretty brief at this point. Like my mom gave me that call, and I just remember like kind of breaking down crying in the train.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know what to do, and I didn't really want to talk about it to everyone and like repeat the story. You know how it goes, like a expo or a contest. It's like, hey, how have you been? And if you tell, you know, it's the same story over and over. And I just was like decided in the train, I'm just going to not say anything, you know? But there was a period where I was supposed to be in Europe for 3 weeks, and my family was trying to figure out, like, do I come home before Langenfeld? Do I stay? Long story short, you know, my dad always wanted me to go on these trips and everything. And so I basically decided to, they decided for me basically to stay in Langenfeld and ride the contest. And I think I stayed the whole trip, which was like 3 weeks, to like Munich Mash or something, or Feast, I guess it was Feast. And I ended up winning that contest, which was pretty crazy because it was the least prepared I've ever felt for a contest. And it was, I don't know. I was just like, in my mind, I was a mess the whole leading up to it. But I mean, it just looked like I probably just looked whack on a wakeboard. I don't know. Like, just couldn't figure out what tricks to do and everything. I probably actually was riding okay, but I just couldn't figure out what to do. I was just like, couldn't think.
Yeah.
And then throughout the contest, it kept coming together. I kept just trying different tricks that I felt like I needed to do, and it worked out, and I ended up winning the contest, which was my first like big win, even though I had a lot of third places. I was good at third place. And so I won that contest, and that was pretty game changer. It got me in a lot of events like Munich Mash. Pretty much the invite came like the next week. I'm assuming that it was from that. And that kind of led into a lot of my career. But I think that, you know, it was crazy, the timing, because that was like something me and my dad always like dreamed about, was just like winning a contest like that. And then it was like so bittersweet because all I wanted to do was call him and tell him like we finally won one, you know. And then,
do you celebrate like that, or is it like what's the immediate like after
After the
you
contest?
win. No, after you win. LAO.
Oh,
year.
at that contest.
That specific
specifically.
one, yeah.
Man, I don't even. We kind of celebrated again. No one knew, and it was like, I was stoked. I was in this battle between trying to be happy and like, think like we've accomplished a thing. Like my dad and a lot of my family put in work so I could go to events, so I could win one day, and like then we did it. But it was I was super like depressed, I guess, or not. I don't even know how to explain it, just down that I couldn't call him. So anytime I was like getting super excited, all I wanted to do was call him. Like that's what I would have done regardless of him being sick or anything. And so that was my instinct. So there was definitely celebration, and I probably had a few drinks and it made me like not think about it as much, but in the end it was like we didn't celebrate long. It was like celebrate for an hour or two. People started getting drunk and then kind of dip and just kind of hang with my girlfriend at the time, who's currently my wife. Like that was her at the event, and I guess like we talked about it a lot in the room,
Because she was the only one that knew it.
She was the only one that knew. Yeah,
so.
at the entire event. So that was pretty tough, and those were my best friends at that event.
Yeah.
And it was hard not to tell them because that's who I probably would have told anyways. I probably would have picked up the phone and called them. But then if I told them, how could they keep it a secret from everyone else? And
This becomes this whole thing. Yeah.
so it's just like, it was really tough. It was even tough just like not being able to tell someone like Aaron Gunn, who was like pretty much my best friend at the time after living in Australia, and not be able to, it was tough, awkward, mentally weird. Like there's not really words to explain that those feelings all coming together.
Yeah, I think people can kind of understand that. Like, obviously, people don't know how that feels, but it's obvious to understand how that would feel. You know what I mean? So I guess you're kind of turning that into the beginning of your career is where you're going with that.
Well,
next step.
I was gonna say
Get invited to Munich Mash.
So I get invited to Munich Mash, which I then pretty much is the next event. I think I do feast or something, and end up flying home. I don't even remember why I was there for like 2 or 3 weeks. We do the whole funeral and that type of thing, and I flew back out to Munich Mash, and I did it was the mega ramp contest, and I separated my shoulder in my run in semifinals, and I completely tore a ligament in my shoulder, and that was pretty hard because I come off of like winning a contest, and I'm like feel like I'm doing pretty good, and then this happens, and so I didn't really know what to think, or even what that means, and not a lot of people did. Vossi, I brought him the x-rays and all the medical stuff, and he read it in German because it was all in German, and then he took it to his doctor, and he translated everything, and I called my doctors in America, and they basically explained the injury, said you can't make it worse.
It's just going to hurt.
It hurts really bad. So I couldn't ride for sure for like 2 or 3 weeks because of the swelling. But Plastic Playgrounds is coming up. Plastic Playgrounds top 16 guaranteed a grand. But top 8 from the previous year automatically gets into that top 16. You basically have the top 8 invited to the final 16, like to that round of semis or whatever it is. And quarters, wow, I'm tired. And then you have the other 8, like the other 30 try to qualify for the second 8 spots to go head to head. So you guaranteed a grand to show up and get 16. So I was like, well, I plan to stay the whole time. I might as well stay the whole time and just take the grand and get home, And of course, I'm not going to just do a lap and not hit anything. So I spent the time with Aaron Gunn. He rented a car and we shared it or whatever. And I just filmed him and traveled around with him. And I think Tommy Matthews might have been with us, some Australian wakeboarder, and maybe Alex Allback. And we bounced around all the way up until flying to London. Tried to ride that week, which was miserable. And I kind of thought I put down a pretty decent run, but they were easy tricks. It was just full pulls. I was stoked on full pulls, and I didn't make it through, and which is fine. But then I came home and kept riding, and that is the only injury today that still bugs me. Partially because I didn't take enough time off, I guess. Partially because maybe if I just did better rehab, it'd be better. Or maybe it's just that injury. But that's
separated shoulder was the.
Yeah, and the way it bugs me is cable elbow. My shoulder's just not strong enough. And if I go to the gym enough, it will be. But for some reason, even if it feels strong, it just gets so tired quicker. I don't know why, you know, like I didn't have surgery on it or anything,
Yeah.
but so my arm gets really bad cable elbow, and that's like the biggest thing preventing me from riding more than I want to ride for the last like 5 years or so. But needless to say, end of that year, Langenfeld Open, and then just not doing good the rest of the year because I was just still battling that the whole year. And that was kind of at a point where I felt like I had proven myself as far as contest goes. I would have called that whole range like being like I was pro. I mean, I was getting paid and different stuff, you know. We can just have a whole nother conversation about what that means, but
that's what it means right there. So we can get into that after.
Wow.
But yeah,
we might have different opinions on this, but 2014 to 2017 to me was like first 4 years of being a pro wakeboarder, traveling around, and you know, it was the contest thing, which was me just honestly trying to make a name for myself and make money and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a competitive person, but when it comes to wakeboarding, it's like my dream was never to stand on top of the podium at X Games or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
It was a means to an end, I guess. And so at 2018, I was like, oh, I have a chance. Like, I had just hopped on full-time salary with Joby, and I was like, I can do what I want to do. I can make one big video. I can not do any contests. I could do them all, whatever. And it was kind of figuring out. It was a figuring out year for me.
Yeah.
And I'd say my career then was one phase from 2014 to 17 and one phase from 2018 to 2021, like through those years. So that was kind of the end of those contest phases, and 2018 was kind of just still a mess of figuring out what I want to do. And beginning of the season, Joey gave me the call, said, hey, you're still on contract through the end of the year, but we're not re-signing you. The reason I got the call early is because I had a pro model coming out with Joey, which was the Concorde. And it was not the best board the first year. A few riders, me, John Dickey, Matty Muncy, were really thought the board had potential and suggested a few things, and they made some changes. And in the end, I think they were looking at all three of us, mostly me and John Dickey at the time. Matty was pretty young at the moment, to kind of maybe put someone's name on it. And with the changes, I thought it was an insane board. And then after that year of 2017, winning Langenfeld, that was also when they were like, okay, well, like, it's going to be your board, you know? Yeah. You won Langenfeld, you're getting into all the events. Like, there wasn't events at that point. I was getting invited to everything. And it was just made sense. So I was super stoked. We had the graphic done. Everything was going the way. It was so good. And I loved the board. And yeah, they called me like May and were like, you know, we can give you a board to shoot on pretty much with your name on it because we're not going to have any riders for 2019, which I don't know if people are familiar or if you're familiar, but they basically just dropped the whole wakeboard team. You know, it was separate. Like, there was Joby Wakeboards, which was separate from Joby Watersports, like financially or I don't know the back end, but there were different employees and kind of like Hyperlite and HL. Actually, it was called J-Star before. Joby Watersports was called J-Star, and that didn't really work, so they called it Joby. Like, after, so it was like Hyperlite and HL. And they basically said, we're going to take this whole branch and just close it down and have the Joby Watersports people that sell the skis and the kneeboards and the tubes sell that. Although I'm sure they brought some people over and kept some of the wakeboard people. But
yeah, we're going to shift it under one thing.
All under one thing. Make it all. If you sell our stuff, you sell all of our stuff. There's not wakeboard sales reps, which there were at the time. It was legit, you know. And they basically, we're not going to be legit anymore. We're just going to sell them like we sell kneeboards. And that's pretty much how it went. And the whole team got dropped. You know, the team manager got let go. So team manager calls me up and basically says, hey, you're fired and I'm fired. Like,
we're both fired.
Sucks. And then he ended up staying on, and he's a rad dude. Honestly, Joby treated me really well. And I really loved riding for them. And I love the product. I love the boards, I should say. The boots broke a lot. And
some interesting boots.
They were pretty stiff. I liked the concept. It just didn't. They just broke a lot. I thought they felt good. I thought riding felt good. And that's another example of, like, the first year they put it out was a year too early, which was the year I got on them. And I honestly didn't like their boots before, actually. I liked the weird ones, the Evos, more than the traditional boots, personally. But they just broke way too much. And for me, that wasn't a problem because I just kept getting free stuff. But it ruined their reputation. They fixed it, and they were doing decent, I thought. They made a lot of cool product changes, but it was too early. Reputation was destroyed. No one wanted to buy the board and not the boots. And they basically stopped selling to wakeboarders, and they only sold to people who wanted rental boards and wanted, you know, didn't know the culture. And so they thought, why are we paying riders when we're not getting sales? Or why are we dedicating everything when clearly we can't overcome this situation? Like, they knew what was going on, and so they just
kind of scrapped it, pulled it all under.
So yeah, I knew, and for 6 months in 2018, which was a rough year for me, was like knowing I'm not gonna be on the same company. It's like, how do you get yourself to go out and film an edit to hype up this company that like it's done?
Yeah.
That's a tough 6 months. And Dom Gers was the other rider who knew. And I think Julian and Yunel had already told them, like, we're done after this year, or we were already done. Julian was already done, which is another big reason. They had lost a lot of their riders just naturally from quitting wakeboarding. And so they basically told me and Dom Gers, and we were like, called each other up, and we're like, what the heck, bro? Like, we can't tell anyone. We can only tell each other. So for like 6 months, we're talking and all this stuff, like, whenever we're bummed about it.
Yeah.
And like, bro, I don't know what to do in this situation. Like, how am I supposed to go how am I supposed to go to demos and like hype up this company, look at kids in the face and be like, I'm stoked on this. Like, I was stoked on the board, but like I wasn't stoked anymore. I wasn't stoked anymore. Like, the excitement was gone. Like, I was like, the board, looking at the board was like, now had a negative taste in my mouth, you know?
Yeah.
It was like bitter. So that happened. I remember getting my last board in like October. And like, I think I actually cried when I got the board, when I opened the board knowing it was the last one, because it was supposed to be like my pro model. That was like when I would have got my pro model. And then it was like, this is the last board I'm going to get, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I didn't even have a good year because I was super bummed, and I got nothing to know where to go, you know? I mean, I had a good year on Instagram.
You have good years every year on Instagram, John. I'd love to see
2018 was like, like growing up.
At that moment, after you get like, you find out that it's ending, are you like thinking of the next plan, like the next step?
Yeah, so and that kind of was where I was going with the Instagram thing. Was like, it was like, yo, it's time to build my brand, not their brand, and let me build my Instagram up, you know?
I got a little bit of time here where I'm still getting paid. I still have a board under my feet.
Yeah, like, I mean, I could build them up and make edits on Alliance. It's going to promote me and Joby, but like, if I build up my Instagram, there's some value there, you know, in that. So I think I realized that and just started.
So you just bought a shit ton of followers and called it a day?
Yeah, exactly, bro.
No, so you're leaning into your Instagram 2018. I mean, what does that kind of look like for you?
I don't remember when it all started.
Or whatever.
No. I mean, you're right, but what I'm about to say, I don't remember when it started, but I'm thinking it was 2018, but I started basically making a post every other day, or 3 posts a week or something. I think there was a period where I was like, I'm going to make a post Monday through Friday, a wakeboarding post, like, and that was too much to do and way too much for people to watch, you know? And so
that was before the mute button too, so that's a bummer.
But it wasn't that much. But I put out, I think it was 2019, so I ramped up of like building these skills and how to get stuff out quick. I made 183 Instagram posts in 2019. That's half the days of the year.
That's that MIT brain just pulling that one out right there.
No, that's at the end of the year, I went and added up all the posts with all the analytics and all the likes and made an Excel sheet and presented these analytics to people.
So that was a plan though. Like in that process, it was like, I'm gonna do all this, put it all together at the end of the year or whenever you do it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the 2018 was just the start of just like, I need to build my own brand.
Yeah.
And then it was like, it really pushed my writing, honestly. Like, I know people, like, it's a lot of work, I don't want to do that, but like, man, that made me go out and feel like I won't post a trick twice, you know? I think there's probably 2 Pete 5s on my Instagram, and that's the only repeat trick, like, pretty much. I mean, there's a few that 5 years ago I did maybe, and I think this year, but up until 2020, like, there was not repeat tricks.
Did you have an Excel sheet of that? Of your tricks and, like, which ones you did? You have to. There's no way you would know.
Okay, so there might have been, like, so I'm mostly riding, like, similar parks, you know, and, like, it's if I did a hit on Nessie, I'm not doing it again. Like, if I did front 3 on, front 3 out, or something, I'm like, I have to back one out, which might sound not that different, but it's much harder out of that rail or something, you know? So I tried to just make sure I'm one-upping myself. But, I mean, you can look at the clips, and some clips were pretty just doing it to do something different. Like, some 180s onto some kicker things that were just, like, not that cool at the time, but I was like, yeah, I'll try it out, put it out, see what people think, you know?
Yeah.
What I did, this is the MIT brain, I guess. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday through Friday at noon, I was posting. I would only post those days at noon, so everyone was ideally in the same schedule, and I would try to make my posts as similar as I could and tweak 1 or 2 things to try to figure out what was working,
what was sticking,
and not keep full data of it, but just using the Instagram analytics of like checking pretty regularly of like what's working, how do I make posts go quote viral, which nothing went viral, but went like bigger in the community. And that time they would definitely post that were going way bigger than average because I was much smaller in the community. So like they would post that were just getting shared a ton, and I'd figure that out and try to replicate that. And sometimes it was tricks. Sometimes it was like, oh, if I do a weird trick, and like, I mean, I don't only post fake outs, but like I'd post a fake out or something and see if people dig it, this type of stuff. There was a lot of cool lines coming out of it, though. I think like some of my favorite riding came out of that time where I did like things where I'd use the side of the pool and do like go on the side of the pool and do like change ups into the water and then back to a rail and just stuff that I never would have thought of, except I was like, I have to think of something new to do today.
Because you're approaching it that way.
Yeah, I was like, everything I did, I wanted to do it to a standard I was proud of again. So like if I'm going to post on Instagram every day, I want to do it to a standard I'm proud of. Well, to meet that standard took a lot of work on the water. So I learned a lot of tricks,
Yeah.
I learned a lot of lines. I tried a lot of stuff that I would not have tried if I didn't have my own pressure to like do something new. And a lot of that turned into like tricks I didn't think I could do better than in an edit. And at the end of the year, I was talking to Liquid Force, and I guess we'll get a little specific here. Thankfully, I have a good relationship with all these people. But basically, Unit and Langenfeld and everyone was hyped on what I was doing. They saw a lot. I had a pretty big... I went to spend a lot of time in Europe because of Joby, and Joby always was bringing me over there and paying my flights and stuff. And so they were telling Liquid Force at Surf Expo, like, you need to pick up this kid. Like, this was kind of a secret at the time, but I already was getting my first signature rail in September in 2018, like 6 months before the Sponsor Me tape. And so that rail was designed, and they were telling Liquid Force, like, we're giving him a rail. It'd be sick to have him on Liquid Force. We have really good relationships with you guys in Europe, and, like, honestly, this kid's just killing us, so you should just put him on the team. And I guess that's where I thought I was going to go. Like, I was like, I like Liquid Force. Like, I like the company. I think the team is a lot of legends and sick riders,
Definitely.
And the boards were good, and when I grew up, they were the only option. Like 2013, you rode the peak. Like, that's what you did, right?
Yeah.
So that board is pretty iconic. But pretty much it turned into, okay, that works. Like, I'm not even going to... Like, I talked to a few other brands here and there. Like, I knew all the team managers and talked to them and checked it with Hyperlight. And it just seemed like Liquid Force was down, and I was down. I liked the boards, and they told me verbally what the contract was going to be. We met in person. We had lunch. This was a time when team managers were bouncing around, and someone was trying out the team manager role, and they told me exactly what I was going to get paid, which wasn't a lot. But, for me at that point with no other options, it was a good starting point. And so I was going to take it, and I was waiting for the contract, and this was maybe beginning December 1st time, and end of December, oh, it's coming. Stopped hearing from him January 1st, and turns out that contract, pretty much the exact contract I believe, went straight to Loic. So,
Okay.
I don't know if Loic knows this, and no disrespect. I mean, the Loic rode Joby, and we were good friends. We went on trips together. We weren't good friends, but we were friends. I mean, I love the kid. I think the kid's super dope. He was super dope then. He's super dope now. We all knew he was sick, but Liquid Force hadn't figured that out yet, and so I was kind of like, I didn't realize this yet. I think Loic and me ended up talking, and I figured out, or Liquid Force eventually got back to me of what happened, and they basically were like, you're like 24, 25, and Loic's like 14. Like, come on, man, what do you expect us to do? And I'm like, I expected you to like have a phone call with me.
Yeah.
But, in their defense, there was a lot of changes. I mean, it's not really a defense. Like, they should have picked up the phone and called me, Yeah. But they had changed team managers and different stuff, so it put me in a tough situation where it was late to go to anyone else and discuss anything. And I was pretty bitter at the point, and I wanted to make an edit. I had a trick list for my welcome to the team for Liquid Force, and now I couldn't make the edit. I was down to a few more Joby boards that were about to break that I really liked, and I felt like I needed to do something to get a sponsor. So I started filming. In March, I basically set out. March and April is really good weather in Florida, but I am super busy in April. There's often a lot of events. And so I was like, March, I'm going to film and edit. And March 1st, the time changes at the cable. And I just, every day, set up the tripod, started filming clips, how I filmed on Instagram, which also Instagram taught me how to edit everything. Like I had to edit, I had to learn. I got better. Every day I learned something. So 2018 was pretty much like, I actually took, this is kind of how my brain works, but I was like, I'm going to get good at editing. And I would at first learn how to stabilize footage and just make sure it looked right. And then I would like start playing with slow-mo, and then like how to edit to music, and then eventually how to color grade. And I basically broke up how to edit in like somewhere around 8 to 12 steps. Yeah. And every month I just focus on one as I'm pumping out Instagram content, which was like the plan when I was like, I'm going to go hard on Instagram. Like gotta get better at it as I go. And so I was like, I'm going to throw just random LUTs on and make it like put auto on the white balance and everything. And then eventually I'm going to like work on each step. I learned how to edit all of that better, which I had known how to edit, but like I'm talking, decently, and like keyframe, and like know how to color grade, and like feel like I can call myself like a half-ass editor. Yeah. And so I also figured out exactly how to film on a tripod and how to keyframe my stuff and make it vertical. And I pretty much just set up and did that, like just filmed Instagram clips, but said I have to beat everything I did in 2018, which I felt like I set my bar for my riding as high as I could in 2018. Like I was going as hard as I could, trying to prove I should get a new sponsor. And I was like, I got to beat myself at that point. And so that was the goal. Set up the tripod, went to work for like a month, realized this is the only edit, partially because it's a quarter of a part, but where I got every trick that I wanted, that I wrote down. And I was pretty hyped on it. I was super stoked. And filmed it all on the tripod myself. And it was like, Max Van Helvert was a good friend, talking me through it, and was like, dude, you need to like make this better. Like you can't just put out like tripod shots. You need
dynamic shots. Yeah.
Make it good, Anyways, the motivation every day was like an FU to Liquid Force. It was like, this should have been your welcome to the team, but like whatever. And that kind of inspired the Sponsor Me tape name. Was like an ironic thing, like the fact that like this is my Sponsor Me tape, Liquid Force, like after the fact, like it should have been a welcome to the team. And obviously I don't think that was people understood that was the meaning of the Sponsor Me tape.
I don't think anybody knew that besides you.
No, and like that wasn't necessary. I always like things to have a pretty deep meaning, but I don't necessarily love to explain the meaning. Like a lot of my stuff, I mean, the song I used in the Sponsor Me tape, the lyrics, I cut the song and skipped around for the lyrics to represent exactly what I was feeling and stuff, which was essentially like...
Is that NF?
Yeah. Okay. And it's basically him saying like, whether I'm getting a ton of viewers or not, whether I'm getting record labels or not, like I'm gonna do this forever, like Yeah. And the song's called No Name, I think. And I think the idea is like, even if I have no name, I'm gonna do the same thing. And it was like, even if I don't get sponsors, and the lyrics just applied so much, And so I basically hit up Tim McGee and was like, this is my pro tip for all you guys who want to film a Sponsor Me tape, get those sponsors. But for real, I hit up Tim McGee and was like, hey, can you film like just cinematic angle? We'll just shoot half the trick. Like we'll go 20 minutes in the boat, turn into actually probably 30 minutes, maybe an hour total of like setting up, getting in the boat. And he went, and I would just like throw a tantrum over the pool gap and like not tantrum to blind. And I would land sketchy, but like I was out of frame, hidden behind the pool, so we just used a clip, and I would just, if it turned into a transfer to a rail, I just had to get on the rail decently locked in, but if I fell off 90% or didn't do the trick out, we were cutting anyways. I already had the make, so that turned into like my philosophy with filming, was just like get the trick from like a safe angle, because I can't hire filmers myself or from a homie, and then like go back and like at the end shoot all the cinematic angles and good lighting, and just edit it together and make it look like it was all.
There might be people out there who think that like doesn't count. This might be a very small amount of people, but it does, because you just have to land the trick. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and also what does matter, my number one rule in editing, myself, and if I ever have an editor, I tell them this, like one angle shows the entirety of the trick, from the ride in to the ride away. There's no cutting mid-trick and cutting to another trick mid-trick. So the tripod angle was shown the whole tripod. Like you saw the full make.
You saw the trick.
The entirety of it. It was made. It was just the cinematic stuff was just for show, So
well, it's to make it a better, more enjoyable edit to watch.
Yeah. And then, for gapping the pool gaps or some of the speeding up the cable, like we was like, I think half the tricks pretty much in the edit was sped up. So
was it 11? 11 tricks?
8 tricks.
No, it was more than 8.
8 tricks. I could
guess
name
you would
them.
know. Yeah, you would know.
I
thought it was
wrote
11.
down a list
I
of 8
rewatched
tricks.
this. I thought it was 11.
What I did was I watched all the wheel wakes. I figured out, I counted the tricks. They were a minute and a half, and said I want to make a minute of riding. A resume should be 1 page, so I'm gonna make a minute of riding and make it sick, and no BS. Like, how can I make really good composition, spin every direction, flip different things, you know, have tech rail hits, have creative rail hits or whatever, you know, and have different types of gaps, sideways, forward, speeding up the cable. And I tried to make the most well-rounded 8 tricks and go get the 8 tricks. And I mean, the 8 tricks I wrote down are the tricks I did in the edit. So I'm pretty stoked on how that went down. And they were all tricks that I hadn't seen before. And also, a lot of it was stolen from Chris Cole's NBD part. Not that my tricks were NBDs, but his NBD part, I think, is 8 tricks. And it was like a minute of riding. And it was just the way it was edited, the angles. I just loved it. And I was like, that edit felt like enough to me.
Yeah.
So if it's enough and I don't have to put a BS filler trick, then, you know, if people are showing up for the bangers, then let's just give them the bangers, you know?
All killer, no filler, baby. That's what we like to see.
So I don't think that's always the case, but like that was the theme. Sponsor me, Dave. Like,
here's 8 tricks.
If
Let's go.
If it doesn't add to the edit, Raph Jerome told me once. Maybe someone else told me that Raph said this once, but I'm pretty sure Raph told me. I don't know. That basically, if the trick doesn't add something to the edit, showcase something of your riding that you haven't shown before, like it gets cut. Like, it doesn't matter how sick it is. Like if you've already done a ollie on back lip bigger, and this is just an ollie on back lip, you don't use a smaller ollie on back lip.
Yeah,
that was his take on it, and or at least that's what I heard his take was on it. And I took that to heart at the time, you know, and I still kind of play by that rule. A lot of my edits are shorter because I'm just like, why, you know?
Well, in that same vein, it's like if you ever question whether it should go in or not, it shouldn't go in. If you ever are on the fence about it, it shouldn't go in.
We do it.
It's not good enough.
I did that toe back 450 on the sponsor me tape like 3 times in the first 2. Guarantee there's not one person I know at that moment that would have said we do it. But in my mind, I full pulled, but I was sliding across the rail, and you're coming like across, like from the pool gap.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, like you lock in where you could ride the rail 100 more feet. Like that's how you did the trick in my mind, you know?
Well, that back 4, you land on like the flat, right? Down, flat down.
I think I might have cased the flat for a second, but I think I get to the down.
I'm pretty sure you land on the flat, which is, I think, is way sicker. But
maybe. I don't even remember, honestly. I just remember being like...
I watched it last week, and apparently I thought there were 11 tricks in it.
I might land on the flat.
I mean, that's one trick, though, so that's what... You can do the math, how much % of that edit it is.
Yeah.
1 out of 8, what's that? What is that?
0.125, 12.5%.
Okay, there you go. So that's 12.5% of your edit.
Yeah.
Got to go back and redo it.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, I didn't even get off the water. Like, I knew. You can feel. It's got to feel.
Oh,
right,
you know.
And I looked at the clips and like I was like, you know, like if I had, maybe I pulled off once actually and looked at the first one, and then I went back on the water and did the second one, and I was like,
I felt the same, or
it felt the
still
same,
didn't
yeah,
feel good.
something like that, you know. But now the benefit of doing all the tripod sessions I do is like I don't need to look at the clips most of the time. It's like, man, my biggest advice is like film your own riding, like watch your riding, like really know, like are you locked in, are you teed up, you know?
Yeah.
And get a good sense, because you don't always know, and figure out your style or your lack of style and figure out how to work on that.
You learn a hell of a lot about your style from just watching your own riding.
Yeah, and also that's where I get all my crashes from. I film a lot of myself, like not in a pretentious way, but anyways, yeah. So then,
how was that edit received in the wakeboard industry?
So this whole edit is like a weird thing for me, because I remember sitting, and I told my wife this, who was my wife at that time, you know, sitting down at Gnarly Barley right next to the cable, and say like, I feel like this is the first time I felt like I have something, like this is gonna be big, like not necessarily like, yeah, like I feel like my riding was always like people respected the difficulty of my tricks, but they didn't necessarily like the way I presented my tricks, either through edits or through my style, you know? And I would say I would tend to agree with them. Even in the moment, I would I became a tech rider because I thought my style was whack. And and I was like, if you do a back one on, front 3 off on a quick rail, it's hard to have time to look whack, you know? If you do a back 9, I mean, it looks like a back 9.
Yeah.
But to do a good back one, that takes effort, you know, to do a method proper, like you know, you're exposing yourself to everyone.
You're not doing something the whole time, you know,
Yeah.
back when I'm front three out quick. Yeah. Anyways.
So basically my riding turned into super quick techie hits because also if the style was bad, but the trick was crazy and teed up and proper and full pulled and locked in, people would still be impressed.
Yeah.
And that's what that became. And I felt like for the first time, I was like, I like my style on this. I like the way it's being presented. I like the edit. I like, you know, I was proud of it. And I thought that other people, I had a good gauge from Instagram. Honestly, like, again, like, people will talk crap on how much I post on Instagram for sure, but like that's what made me figure out exactly what would be well received. And when I put out the edit, it got a lot of views, and like there's mixed feelings on the edit, but clearly, that edit got shared by almost everyone that I looked up to, at least. Like Harley shared it, which was crazy because it's a cable edit, and I knew everyone in the industry at that point, living in Orlando and having traveled so much. Like you just come in contact with people. But we weren't good friends, you know, and he was sharing it, and people were stoked on it, and it got a lot of shares. I just remember being like, what the heck? Like, I thought it was going to be good. I knew it was good,
yeah.
But I didn't necessarily think it would blow up, per se, or get shared by everyone, you know, and it did well. And, yeah, I don't know. I was like, that was a cool moment for me, and I think, yeah, I was just like, wow, I did it. Like, almost like a making it moment, even though I still had no sponsors. I was almost like, I made it. Like, even if I don't get sponsors, like, that was the other big motivation, was like, I started to think I might not get sponsors. And so I was like, if I'm going out, like, I'm going out with an edit I'm proud of. Like, these tricks are going to be something where I can show, like, this was my peak in wakeboarding. Like,
yeah.
And I have that forever. And I never felt like I had a good edit like that because there was so many, like, edits where I just had to do 2 bangers for it and put somewhat of filler in for the incentives and stuff, where I was like, I want an edit I'm stoked on. In 2015, I was stoked on that edit at OWC, but that was 4 years apart.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was like, even if, like, I was like, I did it. Like, I made an edit I'm hyped on. The industry's hyped on it.
Yeah, all the people I look up to are hyped on it.
And that's what I care about, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was so cool for me. And then came the Instagram posts where I met you.
Yeah, we did meet over that, I believe. Anyways, but before that, immediately after you put that out, did you get anyone reach out from any companies or anything?
Yeah, boy. Have you heard of Nobile wakeboards?
Nobile?
Nobile.
Oh, yeah.
Good wakeboards?
Yep.
There's a lot of them. Prospect wakeboards, Progress wakeboards. A lot of people coming in my DMs, flashing some dollar signs.
Yeah.
On verbally, I should say.
Put the pen to paper there and then we can talk.
I mean, I honestly think they were, the coolest thing I ever had. I wish I had it with me. Someone made me a board.
You told me about that, yeah.
With a custom, they asked what I like in a board. I explained it to them. They made it, sent it to me and didn't tell. They told me they're gonna send me a board like I like. I don't even want to say the company wrong. I swear it's.
We're gonna run through a bunch.
I swear it's Nobile. I think no. I don't want to say which one because this was rad. This was the sickest.
Well, I was just gonna say I was gonna list a bunch and you.
I think it was Nobile, and the mad respect to these guys. They sent me a board with a graphic on it with the tape that I used in that they took from my sponsor me tape. They said John Dreiling sponsor me tape or something, and they might have changed sponsor me tape to something else. And anyways, it was just a sick graphic, and there was custom here's your pro model. Just dropped it off at my doorstep, and I was like, no way. Like, I didn't know when I opened the package, and I was like, they didn't talk money yet. They gave me the board.
That's smart.
And then put a note in there or something like, hey, let's hop on a call. And I was like, dang, let's go. Like, this is the move. Like, I was like, I'm sold on just the way you're treating me. Like, let's sign.
You're starting
something.
off right, so like
But anyways, hopped on the call, and that probably wasn't Nobile, but I feel so bad that I don't have this name right, but
you sent me a picture of it, but
it was Prospect. It was Prospect. Progress is in California. It was Prospect 100%.
Okay.
And they're rad, and those guys were sick, and they basically straight up were like, look, we're not gonna lie to you. We don't have the money, but we'll make a sick board and everything. And I was like, I almost want to ride for you just because of what you did.
Yeah.
I didn't because
you got bills to pay.
It's not even that, honestly, at this point. It was just like I had been let down by Joby and Control in that sense of like, not that they screwed me over, but it's the fact that the company folded, that I was like, even at some companies were throwing around $3,000 a month, and I think they were completely serious, you know?
Yeah.
But even at that money, it's like, you know, I rode for Joby for the money because I felt like I had to make it work. Like I had to pay.
You're at a point in your life where you had to.
Yeah, kind of. I got paid to go to college. Like I got a check every month to go to college.
Well, I mean,
and that check ended. And
you made money to go to college?
Yeah, I got like a check every month. It was somewhere around like,
so like a scholarship,
$700. Well, like I got like a full scholarship.
Yep.
And then I got additional scholarships
for you to go there.
Yeah,
because you're that smart.
So I got school for free plus $700 a month, like something like this, into my bank account while I went to school. And
you should have just kept doing that, dude. Just keep going to school.
Well, I did. I went back
because
I finished the first 2 years I did in high school. Kind of like I lived on campus, but the government pays for it. And then my junior year, I started getting a paycheck. And as long as I didn't take more than 365 days off, I could keep getting paid. Like, I could keep getting sponsorship, the money. So I went back and got my master's. The kicker to this was that they pay a certain amount per credit hour, and master's is more expensive. So the check every month stopped happening. That equaled the money that it cost to get my master's. But the first 2 years, I was getting a check every month. And so I went to Joby because I was like, I have to keep functioning. Like, if I'm going to be a pro wakeboarder, like, I need to be a pro wakeboarder. Like, I can't be asking my parents for money, you know? And that's how they rolled too, you know? So I went to Joby for the money, and I liked the boards, like I did, but it was a big factor instead of trying to go to like someone like Liquid Force and just keep working my way up till I was like a legend and then get paid, you know? Which is a lot of people's tactic, at least at this time. So I basically was like, I don't want to go to someone for the money and then not work out. And I just want to be with the brand that fits me and makes sense. And like my goals shifted from like saying I made money as a wakeboarder so I could tell people I was a pro wakeboarder or whatever, you know, that situation was, and being able to live. And it was, you know, I need to live, but I was married at the time.
To the game?
I was always married to the game. May 14, 2011, I got married to the game.
No, to your wife.
To my wife. And so honestly, she had a job. It's like, I didn't really need the money, actually. Like
another sugar mama situation.
This true sugar mama.
Johnny D's life.
True sugar mama this time. My wife's a legend. We can talk more about that in a minute. But so I wanted to win awards, like Rail Rider of the Year, something like this, Video of the Year, you know. I wanted to do things in the industry that I was like proud of, you know. And it wasn't winning contests for me. And it was like, I want to go with a brand that can help empower me with that. You know, maybe, I straight up called the magazines and was like, hey, does it affect me getting a cover if I ride for this brand versus this brand? If I ride for a Prospect, will it affect my chance of getting a cover? If I ride for Ronix, will it affect it compared to Liquid Force, who I know who advertise with you? And I called up all the brands. And this is where it gets funny, actually. But do you want the answer for that first? Do people?
I think the answer is yes, it matters.
Yes and no. They actually said cover, like people buy the cover sometimes. So if the brand is buying the cover and paying to have their rider in a certain spot promote something on the cover, then yes, it matters. If not, it won't matter. It won't matter for like Rider of the Year, for like Alliance. It won't matter for Wake Awards and stuff. That's voted on by a panel of 70 people. But for content in the magazine, it will matter. And for covers, like, it matters in those situations. Like, if it warrants a cover, we would give you a cover. But in the end, yeah, it matters. Of course it matters, you know. I mean, they didn't really tell me it matters, but they basically implied, too, like, it matters. You can get a cover without having a company that sponsors the mag, but it's much, much harder. So that played a role in my decision. Like, those were my goals, was, like, how do I get a cover? Not how do I get a paycheck, you know. And how do I get a board? How to get a promo on a board, you know? Like, I had goals, and I was far from them. I remember sitting down and thinking, like, I in my opinion, pretty much was pro 2014 to 2018 at that time in my mindset of what a pro was at that time. And I was like, I did it for 5 years, you know. But I got a lot from wakeboarding. Not awards, but, like, I got to travel the world. I got to, like, do the thing, you know. If I'm going to do this again with the sponsoring tape, like, we're going to do it right, and I'm going to, like, I want to be a legend, not just a pro, you know, like, why go through the same cycle of doing the same thing and getting the same trips and everything? Like, that's not how I wanted to do it. So, yeah, that was that decision, and that led into everything I made, you know. It was like, I don't want to just get paid a lot for 2 more years and just go in the same cycle. So I tried to call Jeff Mathis, who was the head editor of Alliance, and I accidentally called Jeff McKee because I typed Jeff M. And Slingshot was the only company who told me right after my sponsoring tape, out of all the companies, even Liquid Force was still like, oh, we're interested still, whatever. And I was going to hear them out either way.
Yeah.
Slingshot was the only company that looked at me and said, we can't pay you. Go somewhere you can get paid because you deserve to get paid, in our opinion. I was like, that's super respectful. Like, I appreciate that instead of people leading me on, So I called Jeff McKee, and I was like, well, I was calling up Jeff Mathis because of this, this, and this. And I basically explained to him, like, why have you, like, I wasn't planning to call you, but what do you think, about me writing for you? And he was, actually, I just got off the phone with the distributor of Lithuania. We're doing our team shoot there. And I was writing Aaron Gunn's board because he was, like, my best friend that had a pro model at the time. And they're like, they called up and said they wanted us to bring our new team rider, John Dreiling. And I just played along and was like, yeah, like, that sounds like a great idea. We got to bring him. So, like, I guess we got to figure out a way to make this work. And that kind of happened, like, right before I butt that. Like, I accidentally called Jeff.
That's sick.
So we met at yard sale. I tried to kill myself at yard sale again because I felt like in the end, I wanted to do the trick. Not really that I felt like I was kind of already done with Slingshot in a way. As long as we came to terms. At the end of yard sale, we sat down in person. I was super realistic about what I asked for. And it seemed like, of course, like, how this, like, let's do it. And it was more like me saying, put some skin in the game. And next year I want a contract of good money, But, like, the first year, just put some skin in the game. Show me.
What's that skin in the game? Like,
I want to be on the team shoot, which I guess they already asked. The Lithuanian people asked, I wanted you to pay my flight to the team shoot and a flight to Europe, which was kind of one and the same. I just used it to go to, like, plastic playgrounds. Mm-hmm. And I want you to pay for a video project that I'm stoked on. Video project being hacked.
We'll get into that.
So, I mean, pretty much it was like, these are my requests. It's not a lot. You're putting about $3,000 of skin in the game probably with all of this. And it's mid-season, though. So, I mean, it's close to $500 a month for the rest of the season. A little less. And I was like, but it's all expense related.
Yeah.
So, you guys in? And, yeah, like, you made that easy for us. Like, let's do it. And I took a big risk going with them. But I trusted Jeff because he was honest with me from the beginning. And Adam Sinclair was a big key in that because he was hyping me up from day one. I knew he'd still be hyping me up at the end of the year. And I took the chance and I went with Slingshot.
Did you immediately say, in addition to all that, like, hey, my goal here is to get a pro model wakeboard? Like, that is one of my big goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the call.
I assumed, yeah. But
and I asked, how do I get it? I said, how do I get a pro model? Like, I'm not coming to you to not get a pro model. Like, I'm not expecting it to happen quick. How do I get it? Like, what do I need to do? You say it in words and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And of course he didn't say it in words because, well, that's typical Jeff, but that's probably smart of a team manager to, like, work around and not tie yourself to something. But it's a good question to ask as any rider, and he basically explained it. I was like, I told him at the moment, like, I don't expect myself to be, like, Rafter Rome, but I expect myself, like, my goal is to get to, like, a Dylan Miller level, and he has a board. So, like, do you see me getting to, like, a level like Dylan Miller where I'm getting a similar paycheck and a board? And he said yes. And I said, like, how long do you think that'll take? And what do I need to do to get there? He gave me a timeline. And he said to me when I wrote for Slingshot, we will never pay you enough where you don't have to work another job. Or your wife doesn't. Or your wife fund you, basically. Yeah. Like, you won't make a living.
This won't be your soul.
You won't make a living on Slingshot, ever. I said, perfect, we're on the same page then, let's go. And the reason of that is I don't view, a board sponsor to be, I think you should make a living off your sponsors, but to ask a board sponsor to be 100% of that is just crazy to me. And some writers think that way, but to me, it's like they're a percentage. And I knew what I wanted to make, and I knew how much percent I wanted them to be. Kind of had a feeling of what Dylan Miller made. All seemed like it worked out in my mind, so. Like, the numbers worked out, so I took the deal. Yeah. And then, like, I talked to other brands, but, like, I wanted to be on Slingshot, They, branding-wise, I took less money, but I thought they got me to those goals. I thought I could get a pro model with them. I thought I wasn't the cool guy. I needed some core score points, and I needed to up that score. So.
Definitely after that sponsor me thing on Instagram, you needed to up the score a little bit. So.
To you.
Okay.
I think a lot of the industry didn't take it the way you took it. Jeff McKee was hyped on it.
No, I thought that it was sick. Still think that.
But even the Instagram stuff, I told Jeff, I was like, "Hey, what did you think of this?" After you made the post, which to fill people in, I had been given boards from every company before the sponsor me tape, during the sponsor me tape, after, And I rode for 2 weeks. I did a mimic. I don't know if you caught this, of what Chris Cole did with his NBD part. Posted a trick every day and kind of wrote a backstory and throw up all the attempts of learning the trick.
Yeah.
And then that, which I assume you're not talking about that. And then the last day I posted the whole minute of riding on Instagram. That was the whole plan when I made the edit.
Yeah.
Next week, week 3.
All of that I think is cool.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
We're on the same page there. I agree with you on this. Next week, posted. I thought, hey, I'm getting good at the whole Instagram thing. I'm going to lean into it a little bit, Wrote a board, tagged the company, put a question mark. Like, my initial caption was thinking in my mind, like, should I ride for this brand or should I ride for this brand? Just creating that interaction,
Yeah.
But putting one word in a question mark doesn't really say that. So it came off.
To the viewer, maybe to the industry people you knew, that's like, they knew what you were getting at.
They knew what I was getting at.
But to the viewer who has no idea who you are, or the consumer, it just looks like, look at all the attention I'm getting. I'm fucking sick.
Yeah, and I could ride for whoever I want.
Anybody.
Dude, I get it. It was a kook move.
So that was like one step too far, it felt like. I still think
I was trying too hard. For sure. I mean, like, I was like trying to get Instagram content, trying to just keep that post every day thing going,
Yeah.
Monday through Friday was the idea. And I was like, this will give me 5 more days of posts. And I had just got a new camera. I was like, I do super slow-mo grabs. It'll be like a moving photo. It'll blow up on Instagram. It'll get a ton of comments, which it did, but at the cost of what? Like some branding.
asshole just sitting in the corner talking shit. I actually don't think it's that big of a deal. I thought it was whatever. It's not. I don't think it's worth talking that much about. But
yeah, you can cut that whole part out if you want.
Not cutting anything out. I do want to talk about Hacked because that was the video project that you went to Sling with initially in that first year. Couple questions on that. Why was Yonel in that edit?
The idea of the edit, in my mind.
Sure. Actually, let's not dive into it. What was the idea behind the edit?
I mean, I'll answer why was on the edit. Because the idea of the edit was when I lived in Australia. I explained all of this because it all ties into the more modern years. We would play Skate 3, but we would build skate parks and like love just designing skate parks. And it was like, well, like obviously the classic thing. I mean, we weren't as like kids about it, but like the kid thing where you're like, what if we could just hit this in real life? Like, and just draw up a thing and it just like come to life kind of thing. Like that would be sick. I don't think we ever said this in Australia or even necessarily thought it, but that's like what you think as a kid doing the same thing. And it was kind of like, the Imaginate video came out, and which is similar with BMX, and it was like that was the idea. And so my storyline was, you and your best friend design a park in a video game, and it like comes to life, and you get to hop in and ride it. And to wakeboarders, they'd get to, aside from the storyline, they could be like, that's so sick, getting the opportunity to basically draw up a whole park, show up, it's done for you. And you get to just ride with the homies, Who are the homies? Like, was my best friend,
Yeah.
We're still super close today. And that's who I wanted to ride with. And that's basically how that went. And I thought he still had a pretty big name amongst people. And I thought he would come back, he'd kill it, and it would be kind of a cool thing. And I just couldn't think of another person. I mean, Aaron Gunn for sure would work, but he was already done at this time too, I think. All my homies at this point, which was why it was really hard in 2018 and 2019, like making that decision, were gone. Like everyone, Chandler, Chad Worrell, Chandler Powell, Julian, Aaron Gunn, pretty much our whole crew was just gone,
Yeah.
It was like me and Graham left from that generation of riders. And so I had to pick someone. You turn into, like, why not? If you're going to do a project where you're not really going to make any money, you're going to work your ass off on, don't you want to do it with the best friends and the homies? Like, so I did. And then like the friends section were the friends that came up and helped me move everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, like, this is what, like, thank you. I don't want to just say thank you and like push you away. Like, come ride in this.
You're in
Like,
it.
that's what it is, right? With the homies. I don't care what you can do on the board, Like, the wakeboarding should be about riding with your homies, regardless of who's pro and who's famous or not famous. No one's famous in wakeboarding. Well, maybe Harley Clifford. He's got, but and so I didn't care what the status was. Like that was for me, and that was kind of just, I thought the edit would be a cool enough storyline. It didn't matter who was in it. in my view, before I filmed it, and I still kind of feel that way. It's like, do it if you're gonna do it, and you're gonna dedicate like your life to something, and that the amount of work for that edit was insane. Like, do it with the people you want to do it with, you know.
Yeah.
But he had to ride a slingshot board. That was the deal, because slingshot paid his flight too. So
They did.
So I was like, you got to ride a slingshot board, which he just grabbed from the shop at Dan's. But
yeah, it doesn't matter what board UNL's on. I feel like it. Yeah, he can do whatever the hell he wants.
Sure.
I asked you earlier about why you didn't back five into the hallway gap that you made, and I'm gonna pain myself later for putting this in, but I'll put it in.
I'll send you the clip and I'll
if you have the
clip
clips, yeah, that make it a lot easier.
Any clip you want, I'll pull for you. They're all super organized.
I can imagine they're very organized in that MIT brain.
Well, because every year since like for a long time I was doing season recaps, so like all my Instagram posts go up by month in a Google Drive, already edited and everything. So it's like pretty easy to pull clips that are edited already.
Crazy. Anyways, why didn't you back five into it?
Why didn't I back five into the hallway on the banana?
Would have been sick.
That was not a big kicker. And at the time, okay, here's the reality of how that edit went. There's a lot of tricks I wanted to do. To me, the whole focus starting in 2019 was I want clips. When I said I wanted to kind of be like remembered as like a legend, like that influenced everything. And like I wanted my clips to be something that people looked back in a long time, and or my edits and stuff, and they still had some value to watch. Tech tricks just don't do that. They get done over and over. You know, there's very few tech tricks that people don't go back and do, or not every kid's not doing the next year. So tech started becoming such a less significant priority to me. And with that edit, I wanted pretty much the beginning of the first hit on each rail is the same line, but pretty much like on that feature, for example, every hit is a different line.
Yeah.
I gap to something else. And there's just one kicker in the front. And the whole edit on every hit I do on every hack, I wanted to do a different line on everything. I wanted to showcase, like I love doing this when I hit a new feature, showcase all the lines so people get more, it's more relatable to people and they want to wakeboard. Like I want my edits to make people want to wakeboard. And if it's just tech hits on the same exact line on everything, then after the first line,
there's no variety, yeah.
It doesn't make them want to ride. But if you do a line here and a line there and a different line over there, they see lines they could do and they picture the tricks they would do on that line. That was my view. So we spent 4 days hacking the park up and flooding and all the mess that Westrock comes with. We had it all that week. Yeah. It was freezing. And we went around and did the classic thing that I do in all my edits. And we just filmed from shore, got the footage, got the tricks, went back and filmed cinematic angles the very last hour. He went out on the boat of the tricks I already had landed, so I knew they were landed. And we shot the cinematic angles. The back three into the hallway, I think I did twice. But in the end, we only had an hour on each feature total. Yeah. So the whole edit just doesn't have bangers in it. Like there's not one banger in that edit really, that I can think of. And there was one I wanted to do, which was the back one to the wall.
Some good slams.
The back one to the wall, rewind to the other way wall.
Yeah.
And that was like a classic Johnny D hit, I would call it. Like that to me is like, that's me. Like that is something that represents my riding, and I would love that clip to have existed.
Yeah.
Because that was the one clip I really wanted in the edit that kind of got away. Like every edit has one, except the sponsor me tape for me didn't end up having one. But I wasn't going to put it out until I got them all. So yeah. But yeah, so that was why there was no banger there. And in reality, there was no banger in the whole thing. We didn't have the time, and I didn't think bangers were like the most important thing for that edit.
That wasn't the
that
goal of the edit.
Storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, the goal of the edit was to make you want to wakeboard. And we didn't go with the whole like graphics and video game theme in the beginning, because I didn't want to be cheesy. I learned my lesson already on that one. I wanted to like stick with like tell the story. That's important to me in edits, but you know, I play it safe on getting too cheesy. Like Red Bull can pull it off, but aside from them, maybe it's better safe to just.
I think SR did a really good job. I thought that first effect was super sick when the feature gets dragged in front of it.
Yeah.
Or is that not SR? Did somebody else do that?
SR did that.
He did that. Okay, that's what I thought.
It's not that effect. It's the whole sitting at the computer at the beginning in a coffee shop and designing rails. Yeah. The original thing was to be sitting there with video games in Dan's living room and play video games in Dan's living room. Gotcha. And have it like zoom into the TV screen and build it on skate or like have SketchUp kind of, but like make it look like fully animate SketchUp.
Yeah.
But I just thought we're not going to pull it off. It's going to look cheesy. And me and now are just gonna be like, hey, what's up, boy? Like, let's go. Like, that's so sick. Like, no, I wanted it to look more natural.
Yeah.
But the idea was like the video game come to life thing.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool concept. Cool name. Did that win anything?
No. We premiered at Beers and Premieres, which was sick. Like, I always wanted to have a premiere there. No, I never won anything in my life until last year. Pretty much. Oh, Langenfeld. Like, I won one contest and I won one award. And, yeah, so, I mean, I won contests, but not one that I would, not like that level, you know.
Yeah.
I won, like, Rail Garden Rampage style contest, but.
Well, I beat Conrad McIntosh in Real Garden Rampage this year, so that's,
Oh, he beat me last year.
yeah. So I'm
Still bitter about that.
better than
Adam
you.
Sinclair just isn't a judge. I'm just kidding.
Let's talk. Shit, where was I? I was gonna go next. Either jump into working with unit, or kind of stay on the wakeboard side of things.
Yeah, so
It's up to you.
well, we can go to Unit.
Okay, yeah,
Because Unit I've worked for way longer than people think. Like, that's been a huge thing for a long time.
all right, let's run it from the top then. How you got started with them?
Pretty much, after winning Langenfeld was so probably since 2012, a year into wakeboarding, I was sending them Unit, like, rail designs to info@unitparktech.com that I drew up in SketchUp.
Yeah,
And I didn't know SketchUp existed. I was like, how do I draw features? How do I draw a skate park? And like, this was it. I mean, this story is actually pretty interesting. I don't know if you know this. I wanted to be a pro wakeboarder to get a job with Unit, or I didn't know Unit existed, but to get a job designing rails. Like, I didn't necessarily want to, like, my thought was wakeboarding is progressing quick, but people are not back threeing onto rails, and they're not back threeing off safeties. But I kind of saw where it was going to at that point. Like, you can always tell, you know, like, when flip to rails are next, you know. Soon we're going to be doing KGB 450s to rails, and I'll be throwing up probably. But, so I was like, oh, I'm never going to, like, do some safety back three transfer. So I got to get really good really quick. I can kind of be a pro, get to know Unit or someone, and I can get a job designing rails. But since they're in Germany, I got to get, like, big enough name that I can get to know these guys, you know. Yeah. But as a kid, like, I loved designing stuff, and I wanted to design, like, this, like, X Games for skateboarding and snowboarding. Like, I mean, I studied physics for undergrad. Like, I was into that side of it. And so I was sending Unit rail designs since 2012. Some of them were good. Most of them were crap. One of them was good, I should say. And it was just luck, I guess. But I got better at designing. I kept sending them rails, and I won Langenfeld. We had a relationship for a long time before Langenfeld. Like, when I went to Wake the Line in 2016, which I guess we skipped over, but we did a video like Hacked, and we went and installed a whole park, and I learned how to anchor the whole park and everything, and learned how they anchor it. And it was a brand new park, Wake Beach, right next to Unit's thing. We went there before it opened and did a bunch of hacks and just filmed on it, and then put the park back to regular, or back to how it was planned to be. But the park had never opened, and I learned how to anchor everything. I created a good relationship with Unit. Unit had, like, I guess you'd call it like a feeder team or like an AM team, but, like, not publicly really. And the team was like me, Alex Allback, Aaron Gunn, Maddie Muncie was kind of getting on it, but it was really the three of us, and the four of us did this edit that we lost all the footage for. Well, I didn't lose footage, but someone lost the footage.
Oh, no.
And it was a week of basically hacked.
Yeah.
Not done the same way, but that was
Same
like
concept.
I always wanted to do an edit like that since then. And so I had created a really good relationship with Unit through that. They knew I wanted to work for them, and I was kind of on that team. So I went back after Australia and taking a year off. I decided, like, I kind of didn't want to be a pro wakeboarder for 4 years, 5 years, and then at the end of being a pro wakeboarder, be like, well, I basically in the same spot I was 4 years ago, but I had a bunch of cool experiences. Like, to me, there was a drive to, like, progress my personal life as well as my wakeboard life, and I wasn't, like, saving a bunch of money, you know. So, like, you know, I felt the need to do something else.
Yeah.
So I went back and got my master's, and I decided to get my master's in business because I basically decided I wanted to be a sales engineer type role, which is essentially what I do for Unit, which I'll get to. But I basically studied physics and business to design and sell features. I graduated a few months before, because after I've winning Langford Open and stuff, there was talk of a signature rail. A few months before, they told me I was going to get a signature rail. And then they knew I wanted to work for them and all this stuff. And the sales guy, Jordan McCormick in America, left and went to do something else. And Unit called me up and was like, hey, I think there's going to be a job available in America and all this stuff. And I was like, well, I want it. Like, tell the guy I want it. And in 2015, when I graduated college, I went to BSR, or I guess it was before my senior year in 2014. And I drove, after my junior year, I drove to Hangar 9 to meet Pat because I heard he's the guy. And I like also emailed info at Unit. It was like, I want to work for you guys. Like, I'm about to graduate in a year. So I drove 3 hours, met with Pat, and one time drove back, and that was it. 3 years after that, he calls me up. I had his number saved. I'm getting in the shower, like completely naked. Shower's running. And I see Pat's calling me. I'm like, what the heck is this? But I kind of knew about the job. So I turn off the shower, and I pick up the phone call, talk to Pat in the bathroom, completely naked. And he's basically like, Unit called me and told me I should offer you a job. He's like, I remember meeting you and knowing you wanted it, but I don't know if you're going to be good at it. But why don't you come in for an interview at the projects? And I'm like, okay, I know where the projects are, you know. And I pretty much quick call, hung up, hopped in the shower. And I was kind of just like tripping in the shower. Like, what just happened? Am I going to like get my like dream job type thing? And yeah, so I went to the projects, got all dressed up. I'm in like all like button up shirt. Like I'm not overdone. There's no tie or anything. It's short sleeve, but it's like a nice black button up shirt and like black pants, like dress pants. And I walk in and they're all just sweaty, board shorts, tank tops, you know, like sitting at the projects, classic wakeboarders. And I was like, okay, this is sick. Like I'm way overdressed, but at least whatever. Yeah. And we just talked, and they basically were like, okay, we think we're going to give you the job. Like we just want to make sure, like they want to make sure my expectations were realistic, and the money, which was basically non-existent, was okay with me. And they said, we'll try you for 3 months. We'll basically do a little revenue share, but you're going to be trained, and you're only going to get like a small percentage of money for 3 months. And we'll see how it goes, and then we'll go from there. And I started then in like May of 2018 or whatever that was, and just stayed working with Unit since then. You know?
So what's your role with Unit?
So, well, that changed, I guess. At first, I was working with Pat and them, and I was just doing sales. And I wanted to design features, and I would design some. But in the end, I was just taking over sales, and I would do Unit, we sold Aqua Parks, you know, 2.0 cables, and I was kind of shadowing on full-size cables. To break it down, Unit's a German company, and I work for a company called, it gets complicated to explain all this, but I work for a company called Blueprint Adventure Co., and they build wakeboard parks. They're basically, I would describe them as a general contractor / consultant for full-size cables. And they're the ones who had to hire me because Unit's German and all the legal stuff. Basically, Unit called them up to hire me. We have exclusivity on Unit in North America. So pretty much Unit wanted me to sell Unit, and that was enough for Pat to hire me. And me and Pat, who also was a pro rider and the very talented rail designer and rail builder and the most experienced, you know.
Pat Panakos.
Yeah,
for those who are not aware.
Yeah. And he had his own signature rail and everything. He built all the Red Bull events back in the day by hand. So when Unit came out, he basically helped design their first rails. So he was selling in the meantime, and it was me and Pat pretty much just selling rails in America. And he ended up really quickly just handing it over to me. But I was working for Pat. I also started selling Aqua Parks and doing anything the company needed. And it worked in a revenue share type thing where it was basically a commission, but off of the money the company made. So if we gave a discount on our side, a percentage came out of my commission cut.
Yeah.
Whatever, you know. And I did that. I did Aqua Parks. I did everything. I figured at 2018, I guess I knew Joby was kind of ending, but I wasn't really sure about ending wakeboarding at that time. And I figured I needed a second job, and it wasn't paying a lot, but they were down for me wakeboarding. Like that was sick to them. It's important to me. It was honestly perfect timing. did that for a while. Did all the aqua park stuff. Dropped the sponsor me tape. That whole year, I'm going to like shows like for summer camps. Trying to sell aqua parks to like summer camps with nothing to do with wakeboarding.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. I drove up on my own with the whole booth and aqua parks up to Tennessee. Set up a whole booth for like a summer camp conference. Blew up the whole aqua park. Sat in the booth for 3 days. Actually, it was probably like 1 or 2 days. Drove home, and I was like, this isn't what I signed up for. And I mean, it is what I signed up for. But
This
it's
isn't
not
really
what
what
I
I want,
wanted to do. And so I basically told him, like, this isn't for me. And I just kind of kept doing it. And I was like, I really want to get to a point where I'm just kind of doing wakeboarding stuff. And after the Sponsor Me tape, he kind of was like, you know, the dude is the man. He's such a legend. He looks at me and tells me, like, you need to wakeboard more. Like, focus on wakeboarding. This will always be here, pretty much. And so
Those are the guys we need in the wakeboard industry.
Yes.
A lot of them.
And I'll get to more of him later. So I basically focused on wakeboarding, stopped doing aqua park stuff as much. Anything related to wakeboard parks, I started doing. So at the time, we were selling aqua parks, unit features, wave break, all that stuff. When the surfboard came out, I forget when, selling that, you know. And selling cable parks. But I was doing 2.0s, shadowing full-size cables. The goal to just basically, in my mind, replace Pat when he wants to retire and be the guy in charge of like building full sizes in North America, or go to unit directly and just be a designer for unit, which I guess at the time I was more the goal, but both were fine with me. So I just kept wakeboarding, doing rails. We added a ton of product lines. We now literally do everything you would need except building a dock, which we work with John Bemis, or we just refer him. But I mean, we work with the insurance companies. We work with the POS system, the software you use for everything with your waivers, all of that, the credit card processor. We went and created partnerships with all these guys. We actually worked with a company to develop a better software for people who have aqua parks and cables and all this stuff. We found a water slide company to build a water slide like BSR's, but made from a company who makes water slides for places like Wet n Wild. And we went out and just found all these product lines. There's a long list of them. And we try to sell everything a cable park would need for on the water and for their business to run, rental gear, you know, all of that. And so we work closely with most companies on the development of it. I think Pat has a really close connection with Union on aqua parks, and he owns 2 parks himself. So he works on the development of aqua park side. And pretty much I just started getting more and more control more and more freedom to like design rails for unit that I was just designing and setting for free. Or if I could sell them, I could design them, and unit would make them. So I'd sell some to parks like the incline at ODUB with the creepers that's piped, which is just a modification of a rail that already existed. And that's where that started, and it grew. And now I pretty much exclusively just do unit for everyone in North, like for all the cables and stuff, and 2.0s. And I mean, I'm working on a lot in the future with that, but that's kind of what I've been doing the last few years, and just focusing on wakeboarding. And I'm sure I will like lean more into that or transition into more of that as wakeboarding transitions away as I get older. But it's kind of my retirement plan. So when 2019 came around when 2018, the end of 2018 came around and Joby was ending, I had a really tough choice because I basically had a job in my lap. Or I had a job and I was doing all the aqua park stuff. But yeah, when I chose wakeboarding, the company was super down to be like, yeah, wakeboarding is like what you're gonna do. Like,
sick,
super sick.
Do you want to expand a little bit more on unit at all, like designing your pro model rail and stuff like that? Or
I mean, that was sick. Like, obviously I've designed tons of rails. We had tons of ideas. You know, it gets tough. They veto a lot of things for many things to think about. You know, you got to have it shipping in a container. You got to have it something a park will buy. That's the biggest thing. If you want to design something the way we want it done, you know, like gnarly, some whatever it is, like bigger or just unique. And a lot of times parks won't buy something that's not even hard because it's just something they've never seen before. And they're scared. It's an expensive purchase, you know?
Yeah.
So they don't want to make that money. So a lot of times it's like, well, that's too out there. Like, it's not that hard, but it's like out there, or that can't ship, or it's not the right width and stuff. And so over time, designing my rail, I learned a lot about the rail design process and how to make things fit in a container, how to make sure, you know, where is the pieces getting cut up to stack in a container, but also to come back together. Just each piece float on its own.
Yeah.
at the same height, so parks don't have to like use a forklift to hold it up while they bolt it together. And different things about durability and having enough space for people to swim in and bolt it. I mean, there's so many factors that I had to learn about what drives the price up. And my favorite thing about designing rails and why I wanted to be like a sales engineer is what a sales engineer does. I wanted to design something, and you basically say and look at the problem of, if I make this feature super big or add this extra rail to make a rail-to-rail feature, like it gets more expensive, but is that price worth that rail? We could make the sickest feature in the world be $100,000 and be like, who wants to buy it? But parks don't have that budget, and so you got to start to think like, what does the lineup need? But also like, is this rail good enough with less? Or, is this feature worth it? And that's what I love, that like really understanding the market, understanding what people want to buy, what people are willing to buy, and how much it will cost to add that thing, and making that decision of, is it worth adding that
and
piece
working
of that rail?
within those constraints of.
Or do we just design, like sometimes a rail's best when it has one reason, the gravitron, kicker to kicker. Do we need a rail on it? It might make it better, but I mean, sometimes rails are best with, it's just like, we're going to design, not that that's the best design ever possible, but like, we're going to design the best possible way to do a kicker to kicker that's the cheapest and just make it something people can buy. And then let's design a rail to rail over here that's just the best possible one.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to do a rail to rail and a kicker to kicker, or a hip and a rail to rail, And so, I don't know, those are what I nerd out about.
You should have, little advice, pro tip for you or anyone getting a pro model feature with unit. I don't think anybody's done this yet. You should just do the wave breakers as your pro model, because you just make a shit ton of money, right?
I mean,
because you got to sell so many of those, right?
That's a good one.
Maybe that's my retirement plan right there.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to wave breakers, let's jump into it.
Let's jump right into it.
Parks need them.
Yes.
And I don't know how to get this across to parks. And maybe they understand and they just don't have the budget. But it's like, to me, it's the most important thing in the park, more than anything, because it affects more than any feature, it affects every single skill level. The
Couldn't agree more.
beginners, the most important thing about a beginner is, one, that, they can make a lap. But most important than making a lap, that the lap is enjoyable. Like, the feeling of
Enjoyable and
carving on
repeatable.
butter there's nothing better. Like, we all got hooked from the feeling of carving on butter.
Yeah.
And if that didn't hook you enough, it hooked you long enough to hit a feature, and then that got you hooked. Once you felt like you could hit plastic. So that's the other thing, is just like super beginner, like have something just beginners can learn to hit, but mostly like flat water. And then that everyone enjoys it. Like, who doesn't want flat water? I mean, it's ridiculous that that's not the biggest priority in cable parks.
Yeah.
That, and the fact that you don't have to walk way, so you don't have to swim across the cable, which I've seen before, to get back to the start dock. When you fall in the back corner, you have to swim across the whole lake and the island that's not an island.
Yeah.
It's just water.
Yeah, that's one of the most, yeah, you're right. Most important thing.
With Unit, it's a little different than the other brands we work with, because I kind of work for Unit as much as I work for Panacos.
Yeah.
But I don't even care if you buy Unit. Like, let's find something in America that's like here, that's cheap to make, that actually does the job. Like, I'm down. Who wants to put up some money to test it? Like, I don't have the money, but like, I'll help you try to figure something out and like work with people. And I know some parks have tried, and like I work with them, like Odub and Nona, to try to make wave breakers. But like, even if we could find something that's not Unit that works, let's do it. Dan has some solution. In reality, we haven't been able to find a cheaper solution. So I'm kind of like, what are you waiting for? Just buy Unit at this point. But like,
until
I don't even care
there.
if it's Unit. Like, you just need it.
Yeah, it's definitely a need. Let's shift gears away from Unit, unless there's anything else you want to expand upon there, to winning Roadie, because Rider of the Year for the for the layman's out there. Did you see that coming at all? And was that a plan with your riding going into the prior year?
It was a plan.
Okay.
So to say I didn't see it coming is hard to answer, because did I see it coming in that moment? No, but like, I definitely set out. Well, I shouldn't say it wasn't a plan the prior year. The plan was to win an award. I kind of said that earlier. It's like, if I'm going to do this. Like, I want to win awards. I want to be on I want to get cover photos. I want to get a pro model board. Like, I want to make a statement, like make a name that somewhat lasts and that I'm proud of, like the impact I left on the sport.
Yeah.
And, I felt like that I didn't feel like I needed to win another contest at the Langenfoot Open. Like, that was a means to get where I was. But I felt like I needed to win an award, and I wanted to win. Like, I thought Ride of the Year Rail Rider of the Year made the most sense, and then they got rid of that award. And that was kind of hard because they used to have Park and Rail Rider were different. And then I was like, okay, Park Rider, like, I'll really push for that award, That was kind of what I was going for, and I was, like, killing myself for it. Timing wasn't always working out because, like, my edits maybe didn't come out quick enough for the voting. Like, Hacked, we tried to get it out for the voting, and it dropped, like, the day the voting started maybe, but it didn't really catch on it basically missed a lot of the voting at that time for, like, Video of the Year or something along those lines. And so it got tough. And then, fun fact, actually, the voting for Wake Awards got moved back. I thought I was going to win 2020 Rail Rider of the Year or Park Rider of the Year because Insight came out 2019 and won Video of the Year 2019 and all that, and Graham won Rail Rider of the Year 2019, I believe, if I'm saying these years right. Yeah, and then 2020 was landlocked, but it came out way later than the voting normally is. I didn't know it was coming. So I'm sure Graham would have had it out in time and still won. Like, I'm not saying I would have won. Yeah. But in my mind, like, that was the year I was doing it. And I went up and did the gap at Terminus I made a whole whiteboard with the month of Instagram posts to make a case for it. Like, I mean, I'm not going to, like, lie and pretend like, I didn't really try. I was just doing my thing. Like, I definitely went for that, in 2020. I made a whole whiteboard. It's actually kind of crazy because if you listen to the 9 Club with Mark Succi, it's a very similar story. I made the whole whiteboard and everything, and I went to Terminus and did those gaps in the pool to try to, like, make a last post to be like, to seal the deal. I made the post, and then the next day Graham drops landlocked or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, it's done. But I made all the calendar and stuff way before it. The voting is normally in August. This year they did in October. Gave Graham 15 months for his edit, which, again, I don't think he needed it. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Graham wouldn't have won it anyways. Yeah. But in my mind, that edit didn't exist, and he kept it secret. So in my mind, it was, like, kind of locked until that point. And I was nervous someone was going to drop something, but, like, by August, I thought I had it, and then there was no voting and no edits and stuff. And then October came around, voting. I did go up in October to do that rewind, and Graham dropped landlocked. And they gave it to Graham, understandably. I mean, I'm not arguing any decision, but I was super bummed. I was super hurt, and I was like, I kind of thought that was the year for me. Like, Graham had already won it the year before, and I thought that it would be hard for me to win it again. And I basically, that year, decided I'm going to go out for 2 years and work on a part that's 2 years long, that's going to be undeniable that I should win Rail Rider of the Year. Well, really quickly, I saw what was coming, and that was Trent Stuckey.
And he was coming quick.
And he was, well, I mean, yes and no. Like, there was COVID. So what's interesting is me and Graham won on COVID years because we're not contest riders. Yeah. So I saw a window. I saw a COVID year. I'm talking roadie. Graham won roadie, a COVID year. He won Park Rider of the Year before COVID. So I'm talking, like, I thought that was my year. It was COVID. There were no contests, and I was, like, kind of killing the Instagram game, like, all of it, edits as well. I had Hacked, which was technically in that year. Yeah. Because it was after the voting. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Didn't do it. I was super bummed. I was like, I'm going to make a plan to do it right. Like, I'm going to win it this time. Like, the first time was, like, I was trying to win it, but there wasn't as much of a plan until, like, the month before when it came to Instagram stuff. Like, it was just my motivation. Yeah. Now I was like, okay, I'm making a plan. I'm going to win in 2022 this year. And I made a plan, and I made edits I wanted to do, and I was working on a board with Slingshot, and that was dropping, and I was like, I'll make a dope edit to come out with the board, and if voting's in October, like, I'll just make the edit so good I'll win it. And I had all these other ideas, like running my own boat contest and doing some industry-related things and doing some boat-related things that I thought would do good. Because also the mini wake edit was 2020. So, like, I thought I had a good chance at full scope also. I thought I had a good chance at roadie that year, but Graham deserved roadie, hands down. Once Landlocked came out, I mean, there was no question. So, but 2020 was looking like it was my year, you know? And then in the end, I was blowing off 2021. I was kind of like, oh, the edit's 2 years away. I'll take a chill.
Yeah.
Like, I'll figure out winching. I'll start winching a little bit. I'll figure it out. I knew I wanted winching in it. That was super important. I wanted boat clips in it. I wanted just to be like an all-around part. And then I felt like I was doing nothing that year. And I had my second signature airlift unit coming out. And Pat sat me down in like July, like late, maybe June, end of June, but like July, and was like, hey, what happened? Like 2019, 2020, you were killing it. You just stopped. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, my boss was like, I thought you'd work really hard in the winter, which you did. And then in summer, go kill it. But we're in the middle of summer, and you're not killing it. And he's like, you're just working really hard, which I still, like, I was pretty motivated in the work and, like, building features and cables and stuff. And he basically told me, work less and go kill it on a wakeboard. I was like, oh, dang, if my boss thinks this, who's not really that in tune.
I'm blowing it. Yeah.
I'm blowing it. So I made the big app edit, which the idea was inspired by a lot of other things, a lot of snowboard stuff, where mostly Ben Ferguson doing a method, the E-Stone shot on a big hip, and there's a video behind it, and it's just a huge hip kicker to like a spine hip, and he does a method. It's like a cover photo on snowboarding like years and years ago. And I just remember like that looked like the best feeling. And I wanted to do like a big app edit because all of them mostly dropped on Instagram, which I regret. But at the same time, I was just so focused and felt like I needed to prove myself still. And I was like, I'm going to do a big app edit because all these things weren't like enders for edits even. They were just Instagram clips. Yeah. And kind of like the sponsor tape. I've already done big gaps. I want to do something better. But in the end, I wanted it to be the three main gaps, like kicker to kickers, kicker to the hips, and kicker to rails. Because I feel like those are the three types of gaps. And the video is exactly what it is. You can watch it. But, I mean, it was basically already happening before my second rail was coming out. And the second rail was almost designed off of loving that type of stuff. But it just happened that they were coming out at the same time, and I thought it would be super cool to drop the rail with the edit. Yeah. But the edit was, in a way, me regretting not having done all these big gaps in a proper edit and wanting to do an edit of big gaps. And in a way, making it look like I didn't blow 2021. And just, like, showing Slingshot I deserve to still be paid, you know? Yeah. So I did that, and then did the mini weight edit, the contest. Yep. And that was just a test for the next year when I thought I would maybe win. Like, I was going for roadie.
Yeah, make a big push for it, yeah.
So I was like, I'll do a little test event. Texted everyone 3 days before. And it really came because Dave was staying at my house for all the big gaps edits. So I'm like, Dave's already here. A lot of people are in town. Boats are running good. Texted everyone 3 days before. Run the whole contest. Sick, good learning experience. Thought the edit turned out pretty dope. Dave killed it, and it was really well received by the industry. And it turned into similar to 2020, where I was like, people haven't really done a lot this year. It's a COVID year. No one stands out in contests, you know? And I go to Street League, and I'm sitting up there, and I'm just thinking, a lot of riders up there, mostly Gunther, and we're talking and stuff, and I'm thinking that well, I guess right before Street League, I walked up on the table, and Dave's sitting there with some other riders, and they're talking about who was going to win Rider of the Year this year for Alliance. And voting was already done for all the Wakeboarding Mag Awards and stuff. And I kind of walked up and heard them say my name, and kind of like they didn't see me walk behind them, and I realized they thought I had a good shot at it. And that just got my gears turning. Up until that point, I hadn't really thought that year I was going for anything, you know? I was just trying not to get dropped. Yeah. I was trying to do my part. I wouldn't get dropped, but the last thing I ever want to be, I might regret this in the future, it's just like a pro who is, maybe my riding's not there, but I better be putting out parts. I better be like doing the work. If I'm getting a paycheck, I better be showing up to work, you know? Yeah. Might not be the best dude in the office, but I better be be showing up and getting it done.
I'll be present. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to be when I stop dropping edits and doing that stuff, like, sponsors, you have my permission to drop me. Like, I don't want to be the guy getting a paycheck for 3 years when I haven't dropped an edit.
All right. Spoken from the
Putting it on
from
here.
the mouth right here. I like it.
But like at that point, the kids who want it deserve it, or the kids who are killing it deserve it. Give it to them, you know?
Hand it over.
That's been always my stance, and that's why I put out so much content and, like, you know. But we sat at the street, they asked Gunther, who do you think has a good chance? And he was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, no one's really standing out, all this stuff. And gears got turned. I was kind of thinking, you know, I don't know if I can say this on here, but I basically, like, called up some friends who have worked with brands and worked with the mags and are involved in the Ride of the Year thing, and started talking, and it basically got word that Alliance had narrowed it down to 3 people, so the year before, Alliance had told me after I won Chargerholic, which I don't count as a real award. When I said I only won.
I won Shit Talker of the Year.
Oh, sick.
I'd count that as an award.
Cool.
So the Chargerholic counts as an award.
In a way, it's kind of dope that they make an award for you. You're like, you stood out so much that they like chose an award about you. That's super dope. So I guess that counts, but to me,
it's not I know what you're saying, but.
So they told me that I was in the top 3, that they always narrow it down to 3 and then pick from there. And I was in the top 3 for 2020. But it wasn't that close between. I don't know if they said that, but to me, it wasn't that close.
Yeah.
And so they told me. I basically got word I was in the top 3 for that year, and I was like, well, how do I? Like, I've been dreaming about this for so long. I got to do something.
Yeah.
Dropped everything. I started asking everyone what they thought. I asked Gunther straight up, "What do you think I should do?" I also should clarify, Gunther was in the top 3.
Yeah.
And he was having a pretty insane boat year, you know. He should have won. He probably should have won Boat Ride of the Year. I'm not that in tune with boat, but like last year, he probably should have won that. And I'm sitting there asking Gunther, and I'm sure in his mind he's thinking that he is also going for this award. And he's giving me advice, and he's like, "I think you should do this," like, 'cause he had won it before. And basically, I figured I needed to do an edit. I needed to drop some winching, and I had winched earlier to practice for my edit, and I had started to film some ZMT stuff, I think. But I needed to do something that came out sooner, and I had ZMT clips stacked actually, and I was in this torn place where, like, not my gut, but like my emotions wanted to just be like, I got all these ZMT clips, I'll just drop them.
Yeah.
And I'll just finish the part, and then, like, I'll replace the ZMT clips and give ZMT clips before they need it. And I did not feel like that was ethical or like the cool thing to do. I was like, that's not the move. Like, if I'm gonna win this award, I'm not gonna do it by like taking something from my friends, you know, that helped me with these clips and like for their art edit together, you know. So I didn't even talk to them about it. I wasn't.
That was a good
ask
call.
them.
You made the right decision. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was like a split second thought, you know.
Well, I mean, everyone I think would have that thought. It's like, I got these sick clips. They're in the bank. Like, I got them here.
Yeah, and I need winching. And the reason there's no winching out of me that year was, one, like, I didn't have a ton of winching, but also I was saving, you know?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to sacrifice that for this one thing, you know? So I basically decided I needed to do an edit, realized my passport had expired. I was going to go to Costa Rica, do some type of trip edit where I could kind of pull off not being the best wincher and make like a trip through Costa Rica that was like scenic or something.
Yeah.
And that turned into, we had already winched in the springs early in the year, and I knew I had permission at one spring, and I was like, let's just do this edit. And I came up with the whole idea on the way home from Street League. I'm calling all my friends, I'm brainstorming. McKenna, who most of you don't know, gave me a lot of, we talked through a lot of it, and she was like, this is the idea. And like I talked with Gunther a lot about it, and he was basically like, you need to do a winch edit. Some people told me to do a banger winch edit, but I think I was smart enough to know it would have looked like a crappy rear wake edit. And Gunther told me he got put into rear wake late, and he felt like he had to do rear wake in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's all I had was like 3 weeks. And he's like, I think you're good, but I don't think you'll pull it off. And I was like, I was really respected. He's the only person in the world I could think of that had to do an edit like that quick, you know? So I did the springs edit, and I was super stoked on how it turned out in the end, actually. But it was straight up this is my ride of the year. Like, this is what and even the cover photo was not shot like after ride of the year. Like, it was shot for ride of the year of like, I'm going to check every box.
The one jumping down the big.
Yeah. which is like
not
the
a waterfall, but-
current photo, I guess, right now
Yeah,
on
on the
the
pond or
lenses.
whatever.
Yeah, and so I was like, I had tried to shoot that 6 months earlier to get the cover photo 6 months before. Tried it 20 times, never landed it. I kind of knew the deadline of Ride of the Year. Not exactly, but I had chose a date and said, like, if I get it done by this date, I know the decision's not made. So
Yeah.
in my mind, that was just the date. And I made the whole winching edit, finished it, kind of got hurt at the very end of it, and had a winch go in the lake. Yeah, I have a clip of it. It hasn't been posted. Maybe I'll post it when you post this.
That'd be sick.
But yeah, I have a tripod clip, and the winch just gets the straps break, and it just gets drug across the dock into the lake. It just drops into the lake. And it wasn't my winch. I already broke one winch.
Was it Mark?
Yeah, it was Mark's winch. The winch
Oh.
guy. Shout out the winch guy.
Shout
who
out
also
the winch guy.
Everyone just dropped everything for this edit. I basically told people, like, I had to. I was like, this is for Ride of the Year.
Yeah.
Like, if there's anything you can do for this, it would like mean the world to me, because this is once in a lifetime like opportunity, and I'm dropping everything. My wife, again, just being a champ, was like, I was like, I'm basically out of town for a month, and pretend like I'm out of town for a month. And I was disappeared for a month. Even though I was home, I was wake up to go to sleep, working on the edit nonstop for 3 weeks, editing for like a week. And I'm super stoked on it. That's actually one of my most proud edits, because like I edit all my stuff except Hacked. I had help with SR, but I did 60% of the editing, maybe 70. And with this one, it was like my first project I felt like I had reached a quality I was proud of, and we had only done it in a month. But like, so I don't know. I thought that it was cool. Checked every box. I figured, what better way than to like, I think they're deciding around this week. Show up on a Monday, drop a photo that could be a cover on their desk, and
On their literal desk.
well, I didn't drop it, but the photographer worked for Alliance, who was a
Yeah.
good friend of mine. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, you go up and like just drop a photo on there, right? And he's not necessarily making the decision, but he kind of knew that that's why I was doing it. He didn't tell me, but they had already decided when I shot the photo that after right when the Springs edit came out, even though they weren't going to decide yet, it was like, okay, we're giving it to John, I guess. So he went there knowing he had to get photos for the article to come out in the magazine.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in my mind, the whole time I'm talking to him, like, so the whole winch chip, like, I was dedicated to this, where the weather wasn't good. We tried. We had like, to me, that Monday was like the deadline. And so I went up. I was like, we don't even have time to go scope it. Like, I know I've hit it, but it's a Sunday spot, like full Sunday spot. People work in those buildings. I'm on top. The first pool's on a roof, and there's offices underneath.
Oh,
the
I
pool.
guess you can't really tell.
No, but there's another photo in the new Alliance that I'll post like this week. And so I'm like jumping off a roof of people's build. Like, it's creating a crazy thing, and it's a bunch of offices. They work on Saturday.
Yeah.
But I was like, we got no other choice. Like, weather on Sunday is for sure shot. We drove up. I got a hotel for everyone. And I was like, let's go to the spot at night. We scoped it. We took a bunch of photos at night of different angles. We went the next morning, and I was like, I got to get this. I'm going to get kicked out. Cops are coming for sure. And I go, and first 2 tries, I was like, the run out super short, and I was still too nervous to like land it. And I was maybe not quite the full speed. I also sent clips to Rafter Ohm, took pictures of the whole spot, and was like, hey, can you walk me through, like, what would you do? What's your exact setup? So when I set it up, it was like as good as I could get with that setup. 3rd try, landed it like the clip. It's pretty solid landing, and the run out and everything. And I was like, yo, what?
It's a big ass drop.
Yeah, it's 20 stairs to climb up from the sidewalk to the part I start from. But then obviously there's from the sidewalk to the water, there's more drop. So it's like, it's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
We did measure it. Dude, I was like, I wanted to be so confident, because mentally I had to get there where I was like, I'm landing this no matter what. So in the hotel room, I had already made the trip. Like, we were going for it. But we measured it the night before. It's like 14 feet, 8 inches, maybe 14, 9.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's big.
And we went and watched Steel Lafferty's video with Red Bull, where they did the drop. And they claim in the video it's like 21 feet. I don't know, but it basically looks like the winch is from a helicopter, so it's possible.
Yeah.
Because the rope is super high up. I'm not saying anyone's like lying, but 21 feet sounds crazy, because when I did that, I just thought there's no way. Like, the first time I did it, I thought this isn't really possible. I was just like, I'm going to do it and either blow my knee or just like land it. Like, that was my mindset. So I went back the next morning, landed it 3rd try, and didn't know if we got a good enough photo. Tried 7 more tries. We did 10 attempts or whatever. We got 3 photos that all could have been cover photos. Just we didn't know what they wanted. And so we shot, like, they were framed to be, like, we were submitting 3 photos. You choose. I was like, we're going to put 3 cover photos on their desk to choose from, and basically be like, if you make them Ride of the Year, you can be like Ride of the Year on the cover photo. It's like the perfect story for them. And that was in my mind, was like, let's wrap it in a perfect present.
Make
this
it easy
picture
for
was the
'em.
bow.
Yeah.
Here you go. Make it as easy as possible. Check every box. Do the winching. Do the boat contest. I still had boat clips and stuff, but do the cable gaps and all that. And, you know, be involved in the industry in ways which I think is an important aspect of, like, not just like dropping clips and just disappearing. I mean, it works for some people. One person,
It works for
Raptor,
one person.
who's an anomaly.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good strategy, but I think it matters, like, being involved and stuff. So I thought doing my own event and stuff would be cool. Kind of just like try to hit every box because there were no events. So if I host my own, it's
Strategy John at play there.
yeah. And
MIT brain in full effect.
so was it the best ride in the world? Hell no. But you know, I stood out the most that year, I guess. Or I just played the game the best. But I'm not gonna pretend like I didn't. You know, it's like after 1 year of, like, I wasn't really playing a game the first year. I was just doing my thing and trying to, like, win it, and then, like, Wakeboard Ride of the Year, and then not winning it. I was like, kind of like, well, I want it that bad. Like,
Get after
to
it.
me, you do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
People can talk crap all they want, but
That's the whole point. To do whatever it takes. Whether it's consciously or subconsciously, you're doing whatever it takes, you know.
So
Love it. Rider of the Year right here. I mean, I feel like we've been running for a minute. I do want to go over your pro model, though.
okay.
So I guess how we can start with that, I mean, the talks of the board, you know, happening. Obviously, when you have that first, like, trial year with them, you're like, hey, I want a pro model. Jeff gives you a time frame. When do, like, the steps start happening with that, and it kind of starts?
It didn't really work that way, actually. It works that way normally, but basically it would turn into, you're killing it. We thought it would take longer, but we want to give you the volt, and we're going to call it the revolt, and you can change one thing on it. And I said, that doesn't work for me. In a nice way, I said, that doesn't work for me. I was like, you know what? Like, I was supposed to get a board, kind of work that way where we change one thing. And, you know, if I'm so into product design, board design, I was like, if we're going to do it, I want to do it the right way. You know, the way I've always viewed pro models, which is why I somewhat disagree with I think it should be the way you said. If you're a pro, you should have a pro model. I don't necessarily think, to me, pro models, the way I viewed it in cable, has been given to people who were legends, or maybe in my mind as a kid, they were legends, but people that were, like, established so much that you spend 2 years on a board, you know that pro's still going to have a name, you know? So they don't give them out to everyone.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you have to have a pro model to be a pro wakeboarder, because Trent Stuckey's a pro wakeboarder.
Oh, a lot of people say that, and I thought you implied that earlier.
No, I think it's a simple definition. If you get paid to wakeboard,
Okay.
it's your profession.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
what you're doing. Anyways, continue.
So, I think that to me, that opportunity was with Joby. And a lot of people just get a board. You can change one thing. And then later on, they might get a second board, like Graham, and get to do it from scratch. I don't know how much input Graham had on the first board, but I'm sure it wasn't the amount of input they gave him on the second board, you know? And so I think for me, it was like I kind of already had the opportunity. And also, if I had put my name on a board, I wanted it to be the best board in the lineup. Also, the best board I've ever rode, really. But the Volt, with one change, to me, the way I ride, probably would not be my favorite board in the lineup. There's other boards in the lineup I just prefer more. They picked the Volt, not me, you know?
Yeah.
And that's actually why I got it for the mini wake video. So in 2020, the beginning of the year, I guess, I was already kind of going down that road. And I filmed it in the whole mini wake, first edit, and I just, like, the board's fun, but it's just not my style. And it's too flexy for kickers, like, for going huge. For me, we don't need to down talk the board's a sick board, but just wasn't for me. And so I was like, even with the Nomad, I was like, it's still, like, I really want the opportunity to make my own board. I feel like I'm only going to get this opportunity once, and I'm kind of going to hold out for what I want, because to me, again, like, it wasn't about the money. It's like I wanted to do certain things in the industry.
Yeah.
And designing a board, my own shape that I got to choose, was what I wanted. And I mean, Slingshot really wasn't that hesitant to it, but they wanted to capitalize on like me being trendy because I was trendy for a minute, if you can say that. Like, you know, it's like I was hot for a second, you know, and they want to capitalize on that. And they basically said, if we do this, it's going to take some time. And are you going to, like, we're worried you're not going to be killing it at that point. A lot of riders just drop off.
Yeah, you're going to fall off. You're going to be old news by the time this comes out.
And I was like, I promise you I'm not stopping. I'm not letting off the gas, you know. This was like 2019 end of the year. So, I mean, there were 2 years of gas, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I convinced them to do it, and they believed in me. And we've had such a good relationship, Slingshot and I. Like, it's just always been like one trusting the other. And I'm super stoked on what we came up with. And I'm like, for me, it's like my favorite board I've probably ever ridden, and I love it. Honestly, I'm not just saying that. Like, it was supposed to come out a year ago, and I didn't feel like it was done. And so
push it back.
Pushed it back, and you know, maybe it would have been nice to have it come out with the Ride of the Year thing. But like, I just don't think you can rush things like that, you know?
Yeah. Do you have a edit dropping with this or no?
Well, that was the edit I was going to do with the board. In my mind, I was kind of expecting it to take a long time, and I thought the edit would come out with the board. Maybe that would be the hype, and it would be perfect, and maybe I could win Ride of the Year with the board coming out. So needless to say, there's not an edit. I mean, I have projects that are coming out, but it's not like a part with the board, which was 100% my intention. But I got drained after the winching the spring set. I was so burnt out, and then it was hard to. I mean, I basically just filmed an edit of Thomas Herman for like a month and didn't ride because I was just so exhausted.
You put it all in, and then
I mean, I gave literally everything I could have given, and I was pretty much like, this was my window. And sometimes it's better to, like, to me, just go so hard in this one little window, and then maybe even I would take a whole year off, like if that's needed. Like, there was so much motivation, I was going to use every ounce of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of done and burnt out. But I mean, I filmed the ZMT edit at the beginning of this year. So I also put aside ZMT clips, and I filmed like 8 clips, like after everyone else was done with the edit. And it was like, here's like a bunch of clips that I filmed that might not all work, but like, I want to feel like I have a part in this edit also. I don't want to feel like I'm just some guest for a few clips, like the pro guest appearance or whatever. But like, no, like, it's like, I want to be a part of this edit just as much as you guys are, and I want to put in the work. So that I committed to that project, and I put that over doing my own part, I guess. So
you definitely did. There's some heater clips in that.
I appreciate it.
One of a very long board slide on a very tall rail.
Oh, well, thanks, guys. For me,
plus other stuff, but that's like that's what I'm thinking of right now. It's very like sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, for me it was like year 2 of winchology or jibology. I mean, like learning jibbing. I feel like I'm in year 2. I feel like it's gonna take 4 years to.
You're in your sophomore year right now.
Yeah, like I think I finished at the ZMT part, and actually when you see the additional clips that weren't in the version you saw, like, it's pretty much it was me going out and saying, like, I kind of want to hit a transfer switch and toe side and switch toe side. Yeah. For me, like, to get comfortable, I want to hit concrete. I want to ollie onto higher rails. I want to hit kickers to, like, hand rails and all these different types of rails. There's a dry pull that wasn't in it that I did, and I felt like I had to do it for ZMT. Like, it's got to have a dry pull in it. Yeah. But also, like, I wanted to get that experience. So it's kind of like intentionally learning winching while I got clips I was proud of, at least, you know. Yeah. So I'm pretty hyped on winching at the moment. It's
freaking cool, man. It's super sick. I mean, back to the board. I kind of give you a chance. Like, who is that board for? Like, if you're someone thinking about buying a new board, like, who's that board for?
To me, it's the perfect complement in the line to the Coalition. I think it's basically for the people who want a board to hit kickers, do air trick, like an ATV rider, I guess, but also like pretty much like if you want that jibby, like super buttery feel, we got the boards for you, you know. But I think this board is really good for someone who wants a little bit more of an aggressive riding style, someone who wants something they can take to everything, that they can hit kickers on and feel confident that like the board's gonna hold up on the landing and they're gonna like have a soft landing, you know. That ideally the boards won't break on you and everything, no matter how big you send it or what you do. Yeah. And something you can even take to the boat and all of that and have fun on, you know, something for me that I guess it's built for me, really. I mean, and not all the big gaps, but I mean, I love tech rail hits. I like to press. I just don't press much because the Nomad isn't flexy. So like that's been something I've almost had to put aside because of just the board I chose to ride. And this to me is like the perfect compromise between all of that. It's fast. I like fast boards, and it's to me it's quick edge to edge, but mostly it's quick when you're not edging. When you land flat on the kicker, it's not going to stop. It's going to keep that speed, you know. That's super important to me for safety, as well as just like if I'm fast on the rail and I land, I don't want to like feel like I'm slowing down I want it to feel consistent, you know. So that's just a preference thing for me. But I mean, I think it's super playful. I think compared to what I've been on, it's super quick, like edge to edge. You can get really cruisy with it, do some nice carves with it, press it compared to other boards, but it's still going to be stiff in that center for people. I mean, it's really like the board for people who want to hit kickers and kind of just do everything at a cable park. And
Good ATV rig.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of what it is. I mean, it's not the most flexy board in the lineup by far, you know, but I think it's flexier than boys in a lot of the other lineups. So
it fits a good niche in the slingshot lineup, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
it fills a nice gap.
To me, what was so important about this board that I kept telling Slingshot, I was like, I feel like we need this board. As much as I want this board, I feel like Sling kind of needs this board. And it's like was a part in the lineup that we really needed a board. It's got channels, but they're super small. You don't really feel them on the rails, but you definitely get that support from the channels and all that. It's kind of got that beveled edge, like the Coalition for in the middle between where the channel is for buttery stuff. So, I mean, it's really, to me, an all-around board. And yeah, I mean, it's super playful, I think.
Sick.
Pretty light, too.
Yeah. Is it? How heavy is it?
7.8.
7.8 pounds?
Something like that. I don't know.
They're all right around 8, a little under 8.
Yeah, something like this. But I don't know. It's just, honestly, I'm just stoked on it. Like, for me, the way it edges, the speed, like, it's kind of like having flat water. Like, that's important to me. And, like, not every board like, I'm not saying everyone's going to love this board because of that, you know, but for me, I want that board that's like quick edge to edge that just feels fun to carve around on, but you can still just charge the kicker on or something. So
yeah, I'm not going to sell your board for you, but I definitely think this is a board that I rode it today for a little bit, and it feels like a board anyone could jump on and feel pretty comfortable on. There's nothing like there's nothing that stands out about it that like jumps out at you and you're like, oh, I'm not comfortable with that part of the board or whatever. So
yeah, I mean, you could call it safe, I guess, in a way.
Safe
like,
and strong, yeah.
But my thing is, like, the most playful boards are the super flexy boards, like the Terrain or the buttery boards, like the Coalition or something. And then usually not the best kicker boards. You hop on a kicker board, it's not that fun on rails. It's not that playful. Yeah. I just wanted a board that was playful and fun. You could still hit kickers. I mean, it sacrifices a little bit of flex on the tip and tail, but to me, it's like, I like hitting kickers and I like going on big gaps, and it's still fun on rails, so I'm stoked.
Yeah, she's sick. Congrats. First pro model. It's pretty sick.
Well, I mean, I had the pro model rail, but I'm just kidding.
All right. Johnny D, all right. I mean, I don't have anything else here. You've been...
Should we talk about rail design? Because I feel like that's a hot topic on your podcast.
Down to talk about rail design.
I've heard 2 of them already. So, to be clear for you guys at home, only the first 3 episodes have come out. I have listened to all 3. And so I'm referring to those first 3 episodes. But
those were so long ago, I don't even remember what we talked about.
Really?
I do.
You talked about rails. Action maybe needing more round rails. And
I think like every park needing more round rails. I don't see a huge value in having more than just a couple flat topped rails in parks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm not going to agree with you on that necessarily. I as a rider, I think round rails are way better. I don't like flat rails at all, really, even if they're skinny, just because I feel like you don't have the feeling you have on a round rail. Like, I feel like you have the control on a round rail that I enjoy.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it.
But I will say there are rooftop box that's at West Rock, or the classic flat rails or pipes that are a little bit over a foot wide. Those are not rails unless they're round. That's a box. We call it a box.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like
when I get terminology, that's a fucking box all day.
But I just mean, like, to go and pretend like, oh, I'm hitting this rooftop rail. It's a rooftop box. Like,
it's a roof box, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've obviously talked about it a lot, but I just felt like, I guess I kind of hit on it with the unit thing. But I kind of felt like we need more aggressive rails. But first of all, let me just give a few shout outs to some people because they deserve it. Being in the office designing rails and stuff and pitching them to unit or to parks even, because unit is pretty much at the point where they're like, if you can sell it, you can design it. Like, so I now I'm at the point where I'm like, I can just try to sell these to parks, but parks want to buy stuff they've seen before. They like everyone has an A-frame. Everyone used to have an A-frame transfer box because the park saw it or they hit it at another park, the manager, and they're like, I want that rail. It's a good rail. It's a good rail, but every park shouldn't have the same rail. And so when you're designing something, it's got to be something parks will buy and something that parks understand. And oftentimes the only way to do that is build it out of a hack or home make it, you know? And rail design and rail riding gets pushed from the features, right? Which oftentimes comes from the parks buying them. But often as well, the real progression happens with the people like Space Mob that are building their rails. Like if you want to push the sport, to me, you build some rails, or you go hit some winch spots, or you make some hacks. Like, you don't just go to your local park and do the same hit, or the one up a 180 on some hit. I mean, like, and can you think of skateboarders just going and doing like hard flip body varial, like backlip 3 shove out, like some crazy thing like that at a park? It's like, okay, like, can you just hard flip backlip a rail or something? Or it's like, slow down, go to the streets and do, like, that's kind of how I feel. It's like, can't get too crazy on, like,
do a 50-50 on a rail that you're like, wow, did a 50-50 on that rail.
But yeah, in general, like, if we just have boxes like BSR and we do whirly bird transfers, which happened, which were, progressive at the time, like, that's just doing a kicker to a landing ramp. The landing ramp's just not that skinny, So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a list of people that have really pushed rail riding. Pat Panakos was the first with the projects. Raph and Ollie used to go and stay there, and then Raph went and did it at his park and pushed rail riding. And, his crew. Shredtown went and did it with their park as well as winching, And then Space Mob did it. And, to me, that's super sick. And not only is it sick, it's just like that. It's necessary. Like, that's what pushes the sport. And if we don't have people going out and like building their own rails or making hacks, like I hear people all the time, oh, I want to see a corner feature. Like, you should make a corner feature. I'm like, well, go hack up some features that you have, make a corner feature, and show people that it works, so people will buy it. You can hack up an elbow, you can hack up a hit, and so I think rail design has a long way to, like, we can get a lot more aggressive and progressive and skinnier, but a lot of it comes from people just like getting out and doing it themselves. Like, build some rails in your backyard and build some, like, I don't know. I just think I want to see more people doing what like Space Mob did and all of that, and doing hacks. And
it doesn't start with unit just building rails that are all these crazy progressive rails. It starts before that.
No, and sometimes people look at it, and so for sure, like.
Well, I mean, in the same sense, like, angles can become more aggressive.
Yeah, but sure. I will tell you, if we sell something that's aggressive and the park looks at it thinking it's not going to be aggressive, no matter how much I tell them it's going to be aggressive, they're going to call me up and complain that it's too aggressive.
They're wrong.
And they're going to get used to it in a year.
Yeah.
But, Elevated built a down, flat down, which is a double kink for those of you who don't know.
Down, flat down has 2 kinks?
I don't care how you call it. If you want to call it off, a kink is, the only thing you can't say is a kink is a flat. Kink is the welds or the change in direction of a rail, or the kink, you could call it your downs, or what skaters call it typically is they call everything upstairs. So if there's a down, flat, down, there's 2 stair sets, double kink, but either way it's a double kink.
I like to count the flats. So down, flat, down would be 1 kink. A kinked rail.
I like
You'd
to
call
tell
that a
you.
kinked rail.
I'd like to tell you you're wrong, but
I like to tell you you're wrong, because what would you call a donkey? You wouldn't call that a kinked rail.
I would call the donkey a kink. It's just okay, I think here's my stance on this. It was always a down flat. It was a down flat down was always a double kink. I think skaters, I think snowboarders, I think old wakeboarders always called it that. Units had it in the catalog since the pool gap that was a double kink.
Well, units had it
no,
in the catalog.
I mean, we call a rooftop a rooftop. It's not a rooftop. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
We call things wrong in wakeboarding, but I'm just saying, like, in wakeboarding, it was called a double kink. you know, and people came, and there's typically one double kink rail in the park, and people are calling it the kink rail for short. And all these new generation of kids, in my opinion, came in and saw it. And, I mean, you're from snowboarding, but I think even in snowboarding, kids came in, were like, it's the kink rail in the park. We're calling it the kink rail for short for double kink. And then everyone learned that's the kink rail. It's only one kink in their mind because it's just called the kink rail, and there's only one flat, so it must be a single kink, but it's a double kink. It's slang.
It's way more fun to just have the argument, though.
It is more fun to have an argument.
So-
Well, I think the argument on a triple or quad kink is super valid, but we're not getting into that because this is wakeboarding. We don't even have them, and I think we should have them. But
I mean, yeah, I don't know how many single or double kinks have been hitting the streets. I can think of one specific one.
which
Right.
isn't out yet.
I can't think of any others.
The one you're thinking of is not out
No,
yet?
yeah.
No, I didn't think so. Yeah. But anyways, I agree, and I think unit's not far off. I definitely am more aggressive with all of my designs. I think all the kickers, all the angles should be a little bit steeper than they are, in
Yeah.
my opinion, except there are some safeties that are too steep, but they are meant to be a safety, not to ride through. I mean, the name comes from it's there so you don't die if you miss your ollie. It's the safety.
But if they're too steep and you miss your ollie, you kind
You
of do
still
die. You die worse.
Dude, I saw, oh my goodness, Shannon Stuckey. You know the raft route terminus? It's like a rooftop, which should be called an A-frame,
Yeah.
and another elbowed one, and the kicker in the middle, the first raft rail. And Shannon, she's going to kill me for saying this. It's my favorite thing I've ever seen. She tries to ollie into the outside one, which is like a 45 degrees, something like crazy steep, probably steeper than that. And she ollies like too early or too late or something and like catches it. And she holds on and she gets like tomahawked into the water, but like just before the kicker, and basically body drags right into the kicker, and then gets like ping ponged between because there's the elbow, so the wall's angled, so she slams into the elbow and bounces back into the other rail, and then catches an edge down the other back end of the kicker, and she just gets bounced around.
Worst case scenario.
And then she gets up like nothing happened, like a badass. And then gets back in line and rides
Jeez.
more, and just getting. And I mean,
You wonder where Trent gets it from.
she's the parents of Trent and Gavin Stuckey, so she's not young.
Damn.
But yeah, so things should be more aggressive in a way, but
We'll get there.
also-
We'll get there. But patience, but also speed it up. A little bit of both.
Yeah,
We'll get there.
I would like to build my own rails and do more of it. I mean, we've done some jet ski rails, but that's where I see I can make a difference in the office as well, and like talking to parks and just convincing them to buy some.
Well, yeah,
stuff.
that's like the important part of having people like you in those positions where it's like, hey, I know this like the back of my hand. I know rails. I know rail design. I know parks. We can do this. Like, it's a little bit of convincing, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
So
How do you get sponsored? I want to know your answer.
I have no idea. I've never been sponsored.
I did a sponsor me tape, so I guess I gave my example.
Yeah, I guess I should figure it out. Maybe I'll make a sponsor me tape.
I mean, why not? You know, don't call it a sponsor me tape, probably.
No, I'll do all the steps up until when all those board companies are just clamoring over me. I won't do that part.
Yeah, it's probably better.
Or maybe I
to do
will
that
because
way.
you're sitting in a pretty good spot right now. So living the lake life. Got a pro model.
Sugar Mama's the key.
Sugar mamas. 2 sugar mamas. Yeah, you know what? You're right. Scratch that. Get sponsored. Get a sugar mama.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I think we did the damn thing pretty well. Is there anyone you want to thank? Anything else you want to, get off your mind here?
Well, I don't think there's anything I want to get off. There's a lot of I could talk forever.
I know you could. We'll have you'll be
No,
back on.
but I mean, my wife, she's the mate. I mean, there's really no one else that needs thinking more than her, or in general, like nothing would happen without her, really. I mean, I definitely would struggle to be doing this without her. I couldn't have done a lot of what I did in like 2019. She funded everything, for a while. Still basically funds everything, I mean, I get some help from the sponsors. No, the sponsors I have treat me well. Like, I think they pay me appropriately and everything, and it's less about pay than the way that they're amazing. So real quick, let's shout them out, which is Slingshot Wakeboards, Fresh Bros, CBD, and Unit Park Tech, of course. And yeah, they treat me super well. But I mean, in the end, she's put up with so much crap. I mean, we got married at the end of 2018, and basically sponsor me tape on, wakeboarding's been like the biggest priority. And I mean, she definitely doesn't get any of the credit from no one in the industry sees what she goes through, you know? I mean, having riders stay at our house for months at a time, and, you know, then there's often times where one rider leaves the same day another rider comes or a filmer comes or something, you know, and then being on trips like crazy and filming all these things and like the stress I go through when I do an edit or something. I'm sure anyone who's done a proper edit can relate. They're like, the stress is crazy leading up to it, and you're just like, you're giving so much to it. And I mean, she has to deal with all that side of it, as well as me just always being gone and everything, and dealing with me just going crazy over everything and doing it all for like, it's hard sitting in that spot. I think I mean, she hasn't said this, which is what makes it so sick. Like, why she's so awesome. But like, I can imagine how hard it would be sitting there knowing like they're just going off and having fun, and like they're spending almost as much as they make to give. Like, most of it is like, because I want my edit sick, so I'm gonna put my own money into it or whatever. But it's like, in the end, I probably could be a bit better business person when it comes to my career in wakeboarding. But it's like, I want this edit to be sick. I'm gonna drop the money on it, you know. And so she just has to be like, yeah, sure, go spend that money that you just made last week, and you know. So I don't know. She goes through a lot, and I think, you know, when it would look very different without her there, you know, helping me out. And she's also real good at the marketing thing, so that doesn't hurt. So
Yeah. Shout out Mrs. JD. Mrs. JD.
Yeah.
Right? JD.
Yeah, she's JD also.
Double JD.
Yeah, so I owe her a lot.
Yeah. She's sick. Definitely kills it.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just felt like she needed a proper shout out.
All right. There you go.
I mean, like, the shout out list goes on, but specifically the parks, man, that have done things for me. You know, they don't ever have to let me ride free or open up early or help me move features or anything like that, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, my career is pretty much built on that, on like doing hacks and things like that and speeding up the cable. And I mean, none of that would be possible without park owners that are just down for wakeboarding and just love wakeboarding.
Yeah.
And so there's a huge list of them, but yeah, they deserve a pretty big shout. I think they don't get enough love either.
Yeah. Unsung heroes, some of them for sure.
Yeah. Some of them.
What are your thoughts on wake pants?
Dude, I'll tell you my thoughts on wetsuits.
Okay.
I don't want to see them. That's my thoughts on wetsuits. So you can say whatever you want about wake pants, but I rode and hacked in freezing cold weather in a short wetsuit with a long sleeve shirt and shorts, so you couldn't see my wetsuit. Because to me, wakeboarding is a summer sport. I want to make it look like it's fun and enjoyable, even if I'm miserable, to make it look that way. That's my view.
I couldn't agree more.
So my view on wake pants, because of that, is they're better than wearing a wetsuit. If you can't wear a spring suit and wear board shorts over, or like short.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the wetsuits are called. We don't really have those where I live, but you know, in Florida. But with the short shorts and long sleeves, 2-1. That's what I wear most of the
Shorty,
time.
spring suit. Yeah.
Shorty, but yeah, if you get the 2-1s, they're so nice. You don't even feel them. But if you have to put on a wetsuit, I'd rather see the pants. I am used to seeing skating and snowboarding. That's my influence, not surfing. I've had a lot of people argue, like, with surfers wear wetsuits, and I'm like, they also don't wear a life jacket
Or helmets.
or a helmet or anything, and so it looks fine to them. But for
me, my take on that is like, just get rid of stuff that distracts from what you're actually trying to portray. If you're trying to portray good looking wakeboard tricks, having like a big bulky life jacket and a wetsuit and like a yellow helmet is just going to do everything to distract you.
Yeah, I mean, I had my helmet. I don't quite understand still why we're still wearing. I never understood why it started, but I don't really understand fully if you're going to film why you're putting your life jacket over your shirt.
Because the life jacket company is probably paying you.
Well, that's why it started, was because no one did it, and I believe Daniel Grant did it because he was asked to. I think he was like the first, and then it was like, oh, Daniel, he was the god
King,
at the time. So everyone started doing it, but it's like, you know, what I do see sometimes is like a red shirt and a black life jacket over it, and it's just like standing out, and I'm kind of like, at least go black on black, you know. And
or just rock the vest. Don't even fuck with the shirt, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't love that either, but I just think for most riders, they look too muscly that way, where it's like, looks like,
yeah.
Like I think baggy's cool. Like, we have some flow to it, you know?
Cool, yeah, as well.
But I just think the wake pants, like, or the wetsuit, under a vest and a shirt and all this just doesn't give the vibe I think it should give and that I would like wakeboarding to give, of just like being enticing, I see a wetsuit and I think that's cold. Why would I want to wakeboard?
Yeah.
Cold water. I see that when I see surfers. Like, it looks so much sicker when they're not wearing a wetsuit, but it's different because there's not much options for them and they're sitting in the water all day.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. If you have to wear a wetsuit, I think pants are the way to go.
100% agree.
I still don't.
If your local cable allows it.
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily think pants are like sicker than wearing a shorty with board shorts. Like,
No, me neither. I just think make yourself.
I'm not wearing wake pants if I'm not putting a full wetsuit on.
Agreed.
But if I'm putting a full wetsuit on, them pants are coming on.
Them Johns is coming out.
Maybe I'll feel differently in like 4 or 5 years, but I think it's very unlikely because since day one, you always hide the wetsuit. That was my take. So
I agree. Damn. All right. Is this the longest you've gone without looking at your phone besides sleeping?
My wife will definitely say yes to that, I think. Even when I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming about Instagram posts.
Oh, my God.
I'm just kidding.
All right. This is it. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks shit ton for coming on. Johnny D. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening to me ramble.
Peace
Hope it
out.
wasn't too much.
See ya. Goodbye.
Bye.